Welcome to episode 196 of the Reptile Gumbo podcast. We're back from Christmas break. We took a week off.
We did. It was a great week.
It was a great week because I didn't have to work, and today was our first day back to work. So if we sound tired, we are.
So tired.
Today was the first day I woke up before noon in like 2 weeks. So there's that. I just got a note for anybody that's watching live. If you want to go, I'll plug them. Our buddy Sean Gray has the Herpcast tonight. He's also doing a podcast at the exact same time. And if you want to go watch him live, that's fine. And then you can listen to us recorded. But
that's right.
They're gonna have Darian on. And so if anyone wants to go over there on the Herpcast. If not, stay here. I would gladly appreciate if you stay here. And Sean can suck it. Just kidding. No, I'm not.
He was a little worried though, because he was like, wait. Why are y'all on Wednesday? We were like, oh yeah, normally we're
sometimes we do Wednesday. So this time we're doing Wednesday. Yeah. All right. Let's get through I didn't have my stuff pulled up. That's horrible. I don't wait for it. Here it goes. Little Shop of Horrors. Little Shop of Horrors is a small feeder and pet supply business based in San Antonio, and they regularly schedule feeder meetups around San Antonio as well as other neighboring towns and cities. They offer shipping on their feeder insects, isopods, and are working on starting shipping on their feeder rodents too. All feeders are raised on a nutritional diet that optimizes the health of the reptiles and amphibians that consume them. If you're looking for feeder insects, or if you're in the area looking for feeder rats, definitely hit up our friend Lewis over at Lil's Shop of Horrors. It's LIL''S Shop of Horrors. Great guy, and really puts a lot of thought into what he feeds the feeders. So if you're really into what you feed your animals, he's into what you feed to your animals. So go give him a look.
That's right. And for our normal listeners that are like, wait a minute, Katie always starts with the
I started
sponsors
because I'm awesome.
It's a new year, and there's some new changes coming to Lone Star Reptile Racks, and I haven't written the new blurb yet because I haven't been able to get a hold of Robert to get the new.
Yes, he is. Oh, yeah, he's not with us tonight. He is not sick this night.
No,
I know he was sick. He's got some good news. Hopefully, he'll be back with us next week, and he can tell us about that.
And there's some positive changes coming in. I haven't gotten to rewrite the blurb yet, so
he'll be back next week. Let's go with Herp's Reptile shows. So I've got those pulled up. First one of the year is January 13th, January 14th in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. First Texas show is January 20th, January 21st, Longview, Texas. And then we have the Big Conroe show, January 27th, 28th. That's my birthday weekend. Come by, say hi. We'll be there in Conroe. Corpus Christi is February 24th, 25th. We may or not, but we don't know. We play all by ear. We may be there. Baton Rouge is March 2nd, March 3rd. Bryan College Station is March 9th, March 10th. Rosenberg, Texas, which is our new home show. We had the Pearland show, and there were some issues with location and all that stuff. So March 16th, March 17th is the Rosenberg show. If you know where Sugarland is, that Sugarland area south of Houston, that's where Rosenberg is. It's like, I don't know, probably 30 minutes from our house. So, and then Slidell, Louisiana is April 6th, April 7th. So that's the upcoming Herp shows. And again, you can go check out the Herpcast, and that's tonight, or you can go back and probably watch his on his show on his channel later on. And ignore him and stay with us live because we're better. Also want to give a shout out to our sponsor for all the December giveaways over at Colossal Constrictors. They were amazing. They gave away our third week of it. Wait, we are back. Okay.
We literally just talked about it.
For those of you that are live, didn't hear our conversation. For those of you that are hearing the recording later on, you'll hear it again. We talked about our internet cutting out, and of course, because we talked about it, it cut out. But we're back. I brought in our guest on accident, but it'll be fine. Let me get where was I? Oh, our sponsor for the December giveaways. Colossal Constrictors, instead of doing 3 blocks of cocoa bedding, they ended up doing 4 blocks of cocoa bedding, and their winner was Kayla Trotter out of Mobile, Alabama.
Check that out.
She won 4 blocks of cocoa bedding from our friends over at Colossal Constrictors. We will be doing the drawing for the last week of December. I know it's the first week of January, but it's from the last week of December at the end of the show. I'm not going to do it yet. We'll do it at the end of the show. But our friends over at Colossal Constrictors, if you're looking at buying a high-quality boa and you don't buy it from me, that's cool. Go buy it from Colossal Constrictors. They have been amazing. They did our November giveaway. They did all 4 weeks of December giveaway. So go check them out. We also have a good giveaway going this month. Are you going to have it ready by the end of the month?
Oh yeah, I can totally have it by the end of the month for you.
So we need to come up with something for what they have to do. We'll figure it
Okay.
out. We're gonna give away a blanket. Katie's
Yeah.
gonna make a blanket. We went to the fabric store the other day, and I was looking for snake fabric, and I found fleece that had a whole bunch of snakes on it. Unfortunately, some of them were ball pythons.
I'll
Couldn't get
take a
past that.
picture of it.
But there is I think a gopher snake on
Do you
there.
want me to just go get it like right now?
No, it's gonna be. We'll take a picture and post it.
Okay.
But she's gonna make a blanket out of it, and then we found
exactly
like,
where it is.
and then we found like actual fabric, cotton fabric that was the exact
Yeah.
same pattern, different color.
Mhm.
I
And
bought
if
some of
you-
that too.
Yeah, I was about to say when you find the fabrics you want to go with that, I can make a quilt top.
But we'll be doing a giveaway at the end of this month for a fleece blanket. So yeah, we just have to figure out what we're gonna make you have to do to win that one.
What's the name of the show?
Oh,
That's
Darren. So Darren got his T-shirt from November. I apologize, Darren.
Yay.
They ordered it in November, at the end of November. I promise. I forgot that I had to go into the store and okay the order, and so it sat there for like 3 weeks.
Is that why I'm getting emails now from the store? Did you change
No.
the email address?
No.
Oh, I thought maybe you went in and changed
I
something.
did not, but Darren got a shirt, so I'm glad.
Good.
Am I all caught up? I think I'm all caught up on stuff. Oh, we'll get to it later. I'll talk about these later because it was a good find also. Anything else from Christmas? We didn't get anything reptile related.
No, we can talk Christmas stuff. Introduce our guest.
Okay, let's get to our guest. Our guest for this week is Zowie from ZA Reptiles on Instagram and YouTube. How are you doing, Zowie?
Good. How are you?
Good. I told Zoe before we got on here, and I think I said the same thing to our guests. It's like 3 weeks ago. I just started going through our Instagram and finding people who had a lot of followers. I was like, I'll go ahead and have them on. So that's how I found Zoe. But then I watched some of your videos. I watched what was the recent one where you showed your collection. I watched that one.
Oh yeah, the Meet My Pets. I think it's the first one I've done of those in probably 3 years.
It's a very diverse collection of animals.
Yeah, I definitely like to keep a variety. That's my goal. So it's been a while, so I figured it's time to kind of like catch everybody up on what I actually have because it's a lot of variety.
And so you do education along with having like the social media stuff as well, but you do actually physical education programs as well.
Yeah, so as of spring this past year, so 2023, I officially launched my business and went official with my business locally. So I do traveling shows. I go to schools, birthday parties, libraries. I set up tables at different events. So up until now, I've been doing shows through my local nature center where I worked. So I was covered under them. I had their shirt on, but it was my animals. So I've been doing that for years, since like 2019. So this year I was officially under my own name, my own business name, the way I wanted it, which was super awesome. So it's exciting to finally be able to do that because that's been the goal for quite a while now.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, it was super fun. Like most things, the pandemic put kind of a halt in that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that would have started several years ago. But what are you gonna do?
Where are you based out of?
I'm in New York, so not New York City, but like the northern part of New York.
Wait, there's other parts of New York other than New York City?
Right.
Like there's other parts of Louisiana
Yeah, so
other than New Orleans.
We used to live in Louisiana, and every time we say Louisiana, people go, "Yeah, New Orleans." I'm like, "That's not Louisiana. Stop that. That is
That's
New
just a
Orleans."
part. That's just a part.
But so you have to deal with like, well, I guess you're farther away from New York City, so there's not as many crazy laws reptile wise. But now that you're doing this all on your own, traveling reptile show bans are a huge thing you have to pay attention to. Then.
Yeah, so there hasn't been much talk about new bans or anything for New York, as far as I've seen at least. But I'm definitely kind of keeping an eye out because I'm seeing it pop up in other states. But in general, New York is, I would say we're pretty fortunate with our laws here. There's still a lot we can't have that I would like to have, but in general, it's mostly just really large reptiles and venomous reptiles and native species. So pretty straightforward as far as the state goes on what you can and cannot have. But we'll see with everyone else having bans or proposing bans. We'll see what happens in New York.
Where do they
Fingers
draw
crossed it doesn't go crazy, but
where do they draw their line at big as far as snake wise?
So species that always typically, I don't want to say typically, but the species that get 10 foot plus is kind of how they have it worded. So your reticulated pythons, Burmese pythons, anacondas. Unfortunately, there's not a loophole. I would love to have a super dwarf reticulated python because then I can kind of have that big snake.
But they do it by species name.
Sorry?
They do it by species name.
Yeah. So I've asked tons of people too. I'm like, so what about like the super dwarfs? They're like, nope, articulated python is articulated python. They're all grouped together. They don't care that this one stays smaller. It's still articulated python.
That sucks.
Yep. So I'm hoping that maybe in a couple of years, the longer I've had my business, it's a little bit more legit looking, that maybe I can get some sort of like permitting something. I know for a while there was a group of keepers that were trying to work on getting some sort of permitting thing in place. But then again, the pandemic happened, so everything kind of got halted.
Yeah, we have a buddy down here who breeds dwarf Burmese pythons,
Ooh.
which are pretty cool. But yeah, those restrictions are always weird because sometimes they'll put like some of the weird like Australian pythons on that, like they'll put scrub pythons, or I've seen
I think
Louisiana.
those are on there.
Louisiana put popwin pythons. I'm like 10 people have those. I don't even know why that's on the list, but
Just in case one of those 10 want to move
they
to
Googled
Louisiana.
snakes. They Googled snakes over 8 feet, and they're like, "All right, here we go. All snakes over 8 feet." And they just Googled names.
Yep. Yeah. None of
So-
those really big ones.
So as big as you can get is a boa. You have you have a Doomerals, right?
I do. I have a Doomerals and I have a BCI. They're both about 6 foot long. The BCI, I'm assuming, will probably grow a little bit more, but she's probably about done growing now.
Yeah.
She might be just over 6, maybe about 7. But now it's been a while since I've stretched her out and kind of compared her to the Doomerals and measured her. But
Jeez.
I think she's at the point where she's going to start thickening up now. She's pretty much done growing lengthwise, I think.
And then they grow their big head.
Mhm.
Yep.
Canal Side Exotics said that their hometown can't keep anything bigger than 3 foot. Well, I mean, you do live in Canada,
Oh,
so
yeah,
that's your problem for
right.
living in
That's right.
Canada. Y'all also put milk in bags, and I can't get over that. So,
And maple syrup in cans.
and maple syrup in cans, that is weird too.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah,
you-
we're right by Canada, so we see a lot of that stuff.
have you ever seen bagged milk?
I haven't personally seen it, but I've heard it. I've heard
It's
about
the
it.
it's the weirdest. I still can't get over it. Every time I think they buy a bag of milk, and then they buy a pitcher to hold the bag of milk.
Well, you can get water in like cardboard boxes.
Yeah, but that's it. They have a pitcher in their house already. Like we would have like a Kool-Aid or a sweet tea
They
pitcher
have
down
a
here
milk pitcher.
that they put the bag in.
Mhm.
They could have just they already put it in a container. Like just put it in a pit, like in a cardboard thing like we do.
In a carton.
Freaking Canada. Let's see what's taking. I moved, and the town I live in now, I can keep anything but venomous. Oh, well, that's good.
Better.
That's better than anything because 3
Pretty
foot.
good.
That is
That
sand
eliminates a
boas.
lot.
Yeah, it's like sand boas, rosy boas, and I mean, shit. Garter snakes can get some garter snakes get bigger than 3 foot. It's not. That's a weird. Ugh, Canada. So with you're doing now you're on your own, are you also like doing the insurance and everything too? Because I know a lot of the travel shows have to have that part gets expensive. It's like $1 million.
That was the longest part of starting the business, was finding insurance, because nobody wants to insure you when you work with snakes. The
Yeah.
rest of the animals were fine. It's when you mention the snakes that they're like, eh. So for a while there, I had one lined up that I was going to do that was actually really good. It was still it was over $1,000 a year, which is pretty average for what we were finding. But they had monthly payment plans, so I didn't have to pay it like in one lump sum,
Oh, that's
which
good.
is what I really wanted.
Yeah.
So I
Right.
was all set to sign up with them. The agent I was working with was getting all the paperwork together, getting all the information they needed. It got to the point where I was ready to send the money, and they changed their mind. They're like, actually, we decided you're not really our cup of tea. I was like,
Ugh.
I have a
Garbage.
program tomorrow at a school, but thank you. Like, I was all ready to go. Like, right up to that point, I was all set. I had a school booked for a big show, and then they were like, actually, we don't want to work with you. So
Mm.
luckily I had another agent that had just brought me another what you want to call it? I don't want to call it offer, but another
quote.
insurance plan. Yeah, another quote. Like a day or two before. So I like called him. It was probably like 9:00 at night. So I really appreciate that he answered and like got right on it. But I called him and I was like, I have a school show and this other insurance has dropped me. I want to go with your quote. I've got the money. Like, let's go, let's do this. And he was able to like the next day get it all set for me. I sent him the money and got insurance, but it was like several months of searching because nobody wanted to insure me, or the price was just astronomical.
I want to say we've heard that before, though.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
because most places you have to have a minimum of $1 million insurance plan.
Yeah, a
And
lot of schools want at least that.
And what's crazy is if you were like, all right, I do a traveling dog show, you'd have got insurance like right away. They'd be like, oh yeah, that's
Right.
great, dogs. That's wonderful. I'm like, that's going to do way more damage than this corn snake that I'm going to show a kid.
And have way more
Exactly.
possibility of children having allergy issues.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because I come from the zoo field. Before I did any of this on my own, I started off in the zoo field. So the way I structure my business, my programs is very similar to how we structured it there. And it was an AZA zoo. So it was very strict. So I'm a little bit looser with how I handle my business, but still very similar. So I have a lot of different like safety things in place, and I'm very strict about how the public interacts with my animals.
Mhm.
So I'd have to explain that every time. They'd be like, well, what animals do you have? I'm like, well, this is what I have, but understand they're not all being touched. I'm like, I've got an alligator snapping turtle, but he's like 1 year old. He fits in the palm of my hand, and I don't let people hold him or touch him or anything. So alligator snapping turtle sounds scary, but in reality, little sploosh is not that dangerous or that scary.
Right.
We have Katie and I are both zoo background. We worked at AZA Zoo in Louisiana, and she worked in the education department. And then I did a lot of the education programs when they needed animals.
I love that you say that I worked in the
So
education.
you ran the education
I
department.
ran the education department for 7 years.
Wow.
Calm down, man.
It's
Chill.
a little bit bigger than
Chill out.
I worked
Right?
in the
You
education.
didn't just work there.
I need you to
I
calm
just
down.
worked in the education
I was
department.
also responsible for the large events that the zoo had every year.
That's
But,
awesome.
Well, that's so. Yeah, that's kind of how when we do presentations, and when we left the zoo, we would still get called because we were teachers, and so like during like summer, we get called in for
Oh,
like summer
yeah.
school stuff to do programs, even though we didn't have insurance. I think we're past the getting sued. So we would do, but it's not like if we let a kid touch something, it's like I've got a pine snake, and they can use 2 fingers and touch its back. They're not holding it,
Mhm.
right? I remember when I was a kid. I don't know. Most people had that weird reptile person come to their school when they were kids, and if it was in the 90s, it was just like, here's a Burmese python. Let me get 10 kids up here to hold this thing.
Right.
And I'm like, I think back to that. I'm like, that's a horrible idea.
So it's funny that you bring up holding things. So
Whoa,
I
hey,
Stop
family.
it.
It's not a family show, but it's still not that kind of show.
Stop it. I run the zoology club at my elementary school. I teach 4th grade English, and I have like 8 class pets in my classroom.
That's
But
amazing.
one of the boys that I have this year for 4th grade, I had him last year in 3rd grade as well. They were in zoology club again last year, and his birthday was like a week before Christmas. And he asked me, he's like, do you think you could take Luna, our corn snake, out for me to see for my birthday? He's like, if not, I totally understand that it's not okay for like with the whole class. And I said, I tell you what, I said, do you want to like before PE starts, just come in? I said, we'll take her out. You can hold her. I'll take your picture, everything. I sent the pictures to his dad. His dad was like, oh my gosh, he's going to love this. They have a few reptiles at home. They just don't have any snakes. But it was my co-teacher walked in and she was like, oh, Luna is out. Why is Luna out? Why is her cage not locked? And I was like, I
Oh
had
my
no clue
goodness.
you were coming in here. I'm sorry. Kid did great. My coworker was like, I'm just going to stand here. Let me know when you have her. And he doesn't.
That's awesome though. Like that would be like
But-
the best birthday.
Yeah, he loved it. It was he's such an awesome kid. The whole family is just a great family. But
Yeah, that's.
yeah.
I mean, I imagine the other thing that hurts, like getting insurance and saying you have snakes, and I'm not saying it's going to come out wrong. I already know ahead of time because you have a YouTube channel, and I'm not blaming your YouTube channel, but there are many YouTube channels that make it harder for you to get insurance when you say snake and people holding a snake because a lot of that stuff is very. Let's get bit and let's do stupid shit, and that's what people
Mhm.
always see, and that's what they
Oh.
assume you're gonna do.
Yep.
And if it's also if you're the only one in your area that's doing this, it's a concept that they're not familiar with. So if a traveling reptile program is not something that they've ever had the opportunity to participate in, it's a completely foreign concept to them,
Mhm.
especially if they're not animal people or reptile people. They're
Well,
like,
'cause everybody's
why would somebody want to
everybody's
sit
idea
and
when
do
they-
this
Right.
program
When they hear snake, is it's going to bite.
correct or it's venomous.
Yep.
I cannot tell you how many times I'll be at a workshop and I'll say something about my corn snake in my classroom, and they're like, "You have a venomous snake in your classroom?" And I'm like, "No, you
Yeah,
idiot!
no.
I do not have a venomous snake in my
Can
classroom."
we not hit the table?
Sorry,
Sound quality.
I was passionate in the moment.
A fancy show. You can't be making all that
So
noise.
sorry.
Darren had a good question in the chat. It says, besides the fact that he can't type properly, because it says, does she have? I got you, Darren. Does she have to notify her insurance company when she makes new purchases?
Oh.
I don't. At least they haven't told me I have to. So I don't.
If you don't ask, you don't have to.
Exactly. They haven't told me that I need to. So I just hand them the money every year and go from there.
That's a great question, because so did you have to tell them, like, give them a list of everything you have?
I think I probably did. I got quotes for so many different places. I can't remember who wanted what, but a lot of them wanted a list of every single animal. Some of them wanted a list of all of my like safety procedures. Some of them a lot of them just wanted a ton of information. So you could tell it was something that like they weren't super familiar with. Like you had said, like if they're not familiar with traveling reptile shows, it's unknown territory. So a lot of them were asking a lot of questions, and every single one asked the same thing. So after a while, the agents were kind of like, just send us that information and we'll just have it to forward to everybody right off the bat without them even having to ask for it. It'll go a little bit quicker. So I can't remember if this one asked for that list. I probably did, because by the end I felt like I was sending it to every single insurance quote that we had gotten. But for the most part, they all pretty much asked for every single animal that I had, right down to the cockroaches and the millipedes.
Well, it makes me think of like a rental agreement with a home. Like our rental agreement, it has an entire page dedicated just to the dog.
But we ignore a lot of that when it comes to the other stuff.
Oh, right. Well, but this specifically says like the dog that you have in your house.
I let them know we have dogs.
And there's no, like that's what it's for. Like it says on the
we're also not supposed to have that fish tank downstairs.
We're actually not.
I'm sure we're also not supposed to have the 100 snakes in the other room.
When we if you get another dog, you're supposed to amend.
Yes, they can charge you more
agreement,
because that makes sense.
Yeah.
If a dog tears up something in the house, it tears up something in the house. 2 dogs is not going to make it. It's still tore up something. But it's all about money. So with the insurance,
and Outside Exotic said, "Don't ask, don't tell."
Yeah, it's a good rule usually. So does it count? Is it just liability insurance, or are the animals actually insured, since this is a business and they are a business? We have to think of them as money in this case, unfortunately. Are they insured themselves?
I'm trying to remember. I believe it's just liability. I could be wrong.
Gotcha.
I'm trying to remember now, because I know the one we were originally going with, everything was covered. But I think this other one, it had better liability insurance. I remember that. So I think it might just be liability. But off the top of my head, I don't remember. I was just happy to have something.
Absolutely.
Well, I know that's always the big thing. If it's a business, the insurance is always a big thing when it comes to that. Like, we did it just as a favor to other teachers, and we'd go and do stuff. But I know any of our friends that do this kind of stuff for business wise, insurance is the big thing for them, and getting it. So I do want to go into the question for this week, because it kind of ties into this. But
I had 40 million notifications about the question, but I never actually clicked on it.
There were 13 comments. So
I know, and I get every single alert, but I never actually read the question.
So the question is, what are some of the most important topics you think animal educators should be discussing? So I'm gonna go through the answers, and then we'll go over them and we'll discuss what you think are important.
See, that's why I didn't read it, because I knew it was going to be something that I was passionate about. And I was like, I don't want to get into conversations on the thread when we're just going to talk about it on the podcast.
I need to plug my catchy device back in. So got little gnats.
I was like, what are you talking about?
Stupid gnats.
I was very confused.
Our buddy Seth said, wait, he's talking about, because we said animal educators. He says, is that what we're giving the name to influencers? No, Seth, shut up. Go play with your geckos. And then our buddy Drew Schultz over at the Learning Zoo said he'll fight Seth for that. So we've got several friends that own like small zoos. Our buddy Seth owns a small zoo, and he's the most.
Our buddy Drew.
Yeah, Seth. Seth owns geckos. Screw Seth. Drew owns a small zoo, and I always tell Drew he's the most fake real person I've ever seen in my entire life. He's like, if you were going to design, like, if
And
you
I'm
ever played,
talking genuinely real. Like I love
not his
them to
personality.
pieces.
I'm talking physically fake. Like, if you were to design a character for Zoo Tycoon, and they were going to be a zookeeper, it's him down to the khaki hat and the vest,
the
and
little curly
Oh my
mustache,
gosh.
curly
and
mustache.
everything. It's so
That's
great.
amazing.
Looks like a cartoon character, but awesome
That's
zoo. So,
awesome.
anyways, he's the next one on here. Says Drew says it depends on who the audience is, and he said, as a full-time animal educator, 90% of my shows are for kids 4 to 10, and most of the time I'm focused on the animal themselves. What makes a mammal different from a reptile? How a tortoise disperses seeds, or just the basic fact that an animal like a snake won't bite something unless it's food or a predator. So the main themes I'll try to push depend a lot on the factors, but it also always boils down to trying to inspire respect and love for the animals, seeing them as living things, or living beings, conservation, responsible pet ownership, and understanding that all living things have a lot in common with. Gnats are annoying. Are the main lessons I try to get across, which I'll come back to that because I agree with a lot of that. And then his wife said snake safety. I feel like there's something there.
She's also a teacher. She teaches first grade.
I feel like something happened for her just to say snake safety.
No, it's that is one of her pet peeves when they do birthday parties or people come to the zoo. That's something that, and especially with where we are in Texas, that is something that she just feels very strongly about, because people are like, snakes are bad, and she's like, no, snakes are not bad.
That's true. Our buddy Megan, who we've had on the show several times, and she does a lot of educational stuff around here as well, said, like Drew mentioned, who the audience is determines much of the information I'm sharing and how I deliver it. I'm doing a class for a bunch of third graders in a couple of weeks, so my presentation will be adjusted to. Is that your kids?
Yeah, she's coming to me.
Figure. A bunch of my third graders in a couple of weeks. So my presentation will be adjusted to reflect that I'm speaking with a younger crowd versus most of my classes, which heavily include adults. Either way, I always talk about why these animals are important, discuss myths versus facts, animal behavior, and use humor to help people find a way to connect more easily.
Yeah, the podcast will be on a Wednesday that week.
So you might want to let me know what week that is.
Yeah, because I think you're actually going to be at the school too.
Got it. So I'm doing
I
education.
totally just remembered everything about that event.
So I'm doing educational stuff also.
It's with the after school program again.
Got it. Okay.
They're doing a night focused just around us.
Remind me of when that is when Dolph is here.
I'm so sorry.
So we talk about easy conservation efforts. Most people attending my classes aren't going to head off ready to stop using plastic and save the world, but I can talk to them about why glue traps and deer netting should not be used, and why they shouldn't fear snakes the way they've been taught. Yeah, we've talked about glue traps on here before. She's had to take cotton mouths off glue traps, rat snakes off of glue traps. So
that was my text message to remind you and give you information. Because if I didn't text you, I was going to forget again.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
I'm glad I haven't lined up a guest for that week. It's on Tuesday. Scott Borden, he says animal educators does not, I agree with Scott here on some of this. Animal educators does not equal teaching about hobby related issues. I see where he's coming from. We'll talk about that in a minute. Seems like a lot of folks don't realize that. I think of when we were all kids and the animal educators came to school to teach us.
I must have been sick that day.
Did you not have the weird
I
snake?
don't remember anybody ever coming to my school with animals like that.
Did you have one, Zoe?
I feel like we did one.
It was 5th grade. I remember it.
See,
I might have been 4th grade.
I was afraid of snakes until we started dating.
I remember 5th grade.
And I feel like I would remember.
Because I remember the the cafetorium. I was in because we didn't have.
I remember like going to facilities for field trips.
Yeah.
Nope.
But I don't remember them coming to us.
We had weird snake guys show up with big Burmese pythons and all this sort of stuff.
Now, granted, I graduated high school 20 years ago. And
God, you're old.
I can vividly remember in 3rd and 4th grade when we did a reading competition and my principal kissed a pig. But I don't remember somebody.
School.
But I don't
That's
remember.
one country ass school.
But that's what I'm saying. Like that was
Christ.
30 years ago, and I can remember that. I think I would remember reptiles coming to my school, unless I was so traumatized that I blocked it out.
I grew up in South Carolina, like right in the capital. So we had Riverbank Zoo right there, which was an amazing zoo. So we took field trips there. So I don't think we had anybody come to our school when I was down there. Once I moved to New York, I feel like we might have had someone like once when I was in 4th grade, maybe, if I'm remembering correctly.
I remember mine in 5th grade. I remember there was a big snake, but I know it was 5th grade because I remember the school. Back to Scott's, he says it's about actually learning about the animals and their native habitats and interesting facts. But the number one thing that should be discussed is conservation and the this one. Oh, I had it and it got away. Crap. Anyways, should be discussing conservation and the threats to the animals. And then Drew agreed, and he basically said everything he just said. Canal side, as I said, I did 5th grade as well, and I ended up working with him for a few years. Now that crazy reptile guy is one of my closest friends.
That is fabulous.
See, it's a crazy reptile person.
Make great friends in this hobby. You really do.
And weird ones. Crystal Kamen comments says, I do educational shows for kids, but most of the time the parents are there as well, so everyone gets a little education. The kids get age-appropriate information about the animals I bring, and I talk about the importance of reptiles, even the venomous ones. I talk about how it's important to leave wild animals alone. They usually takes me into mentioning to parents that they too should leave wild animals alone, and that it's nonsensical to kill snakes. I often give resources on snake removal. I have found that this sparks an interest, new respect, and appreciation for reptiles. This in turn, I believe, helps conservation. During my educational shows, I also get questions from people of all ages about what reptiles make good pets. That's an excellent doorway into giving information about correct care, resources, and reputable places to get reptiles. I agree there too. I'm going both sides of that fence.
Hold on, before you keep scrolling though, where she mentions educating the adults and parents as well. So one of the questions that I used to get all the time in programs, because I would travel to the schools for the zoo and all of that, and then do all the programs when they came to me, was how do they have babies? That was always my favorite. It didn't matter what animal I was holding, at least like in like peak field trip season, at least once a day, a kid was going to ask.
I never shy away from that question.
How could have babies? And the parents, you could visibly see them squirming in their seat. Like, oh my God, what is she about to tell her
I've explained that to like first graders.
But it's for like the pre-K kids, like 4-year-olds, all the way up to teenagers. And they'll try, like the teenagers ask it on purpose. Because they're like,
mine are very cute. When I bring my snakes in, because I'm gonna bring my snakes in like 2 weeks for genetics, right?
Oh, okay.
They'll ask, where does it come from? They gotta explain. There's one hole, and then I go through the whole process. I'm a biology teacher, so I can.
Yeah.
It's
do you get those questions at your parties and programs?
Not often. The main one I just get is, do they lay eggs? So it's very fun when I've got the ones that don't lay eggs, but that's pretty much the most I get is, do they lay eggs?
How do they?
I haven't had to go into detail.
I have to say something to Canal Side. I haven't called you sea anal side exotics all night.
Okay, that was the third time you called them their correct name, and I was
trying to be nice because Zoe was on, and I don't know her that well, and I didn't want to make fun of. But old sea anal side exotics,
James is back,
this is why not everybody's allowed to do education programs, because you can't tell kids they be fucking. That's how. It's not. You can't say that. That's not how that works.
Amazing.
So, I mean, you could, but you won't have a job for long.
They won't ask you back, and if they do, you may not want to go back. Jason Creek Moore's answer says, information to spark the curiosity, make it fun for the kids and the parents, and hopefully that translates over to conservation and good pet acquisition and keeping. Laura Vinsel said, not all animals are good captives. Even though people may display their creatures, there should be a clear understanding of what the requirements are to keep them in captivity. Get to that in a second. Pierce Plumman just said ball pythons are bad investments. Yes, that should be the first thing should be said in an educational program. Stay away from them. And then Jake Hole, who we had on 3 weeks ago, said, I think the natural history of animals we bring to educational events is one of the more interesting things about them, where they're from, what they do in the wild, etc. But then it tied into educating about local species from there. After I think the most rewarding things to educate about snakes specifically is to address the misconceptions that are spread about them. Usual snakes are slimy or snakes are evil, that kind of stuff. So I agree with all that. And we'll get into that. I'll let you go first. Zoe, what do you think is some of the most important things you need to cover when you're doing an educational program?
So first, I feel like all those answers were like really good and hit the nail like right on the head. I agree with a lot of them. What was really funny was the snake safety one. I feel like that's a big one for me as well. Because, well, in general, just for all of that, up here, we don't have any zoos close to us. The closest one is 3 hours away, and it's still a very small zoo. So a lot of the times what I'm doing is some of the only exposure kids or anyone around here gets to these kind of animals. And we don't have any pet stores either. So as far as pet care goes, anything reptile care related, the people around here and like the community, the kids, they just don't really have that kind of exposure. So I get a lot of questions about care during programs. So somehow, some way, I usually end up finding that I'm talking little bit about care. Mostly I do that with ball pythons because that's one of the main things around here. Kind of those most common reptiles, leopard geckos, bearded dragons, ball pythons. Those are pretty much the animals that I see around here from those that do end up with reptiles. And they usually come from one of the chain pet stores that's like 2 hours away. So I find I'm talking a lot about that kind of stuff because people ask me. But conservation is a big one just because that's a personal passion of mine. So I always make sure I'm working on conservation somehow, whether I have a endangered species with me, a threatened species, maybe a invasive species. Sometimes I have more than one and I can tie it all together. Like if I have my morphed axolotls, I can talk about how invasive species are part of why they're critically endangered. And then maybe I'll bring out my Argentine Tego and be like, oh, and here's an example of an invasive species. And then a lot of people like her, especially if I can be like, sometimes you see them like down in Florida, and sometimes people can kind of use that connection if they've gone on vacation. So finding ways for them to kind of connect back to their personal life too. I feel like it's a lot of that stuff. We have the local nature center where I work. They are pretty much strictly native animals. So we've done a lot of education through the nature center on native animals. So anyone who's gone there is pretty familiar. We mostly just have garter snakes and turtles around here, maybe some salamanders, but not a whole lot in terms of herps. So they've got a pretty good knowledge on that. So it's really more of the exotics I like to focus on. So I do a lot of, meeting the individual animals, try to bring some unique stuff, some stuff they've never seen before, why they're important, where they come from, talk a little bit about their different adaptations, which is a big one for me, their different behaviors, talking about just different cool things about them. And I kind of turn my shows into a little bit of a quiz, if you will, to really try to get some engagement. So as opposed to me just standing here and being like, oh, like this animal eats X, Y, and Z, so that makes it a carnivore. I always ask the kids like, hey, like, what do you think this animal would eat? Like, let's talk about, its body shape, its behaviors, its adaptations to kind of help you kind of get an idea of what it might eat. And then if they can get to the point where they're like, oh, it eats rodents, then I'm like, okay, so what does that make it? And then I get them to say carnivore. So it's a lot of kind of engagement, get their brains working as opposed to me just talking at them. So that's a big thing for me, is trying to get them involved, trying to get their brains working. So it's not just me talking at them for an hour, but also stuff like that. So I feel like because we don't have a lot of exposure up here to those different things, we don't have zoos, all we have is the nature center, I kind of have to hit a little bit of everything from, different locations, behaviors, animal care, all sorts of stuff. But also then, like I mentioned, the snake safety. I feel like a lot of people, especially when it comes to education programs, they're very much like, hey, like, I want to hold the snake. Let me wrap it around my neck. Let me do this. Let me do that. And I'm just like,
yeah,
I have a hard time getting insurance. Let's talk about how to, responsibly handle the animals as well. So I do that a lot too. Just like responsible handling, what you should and should not do when you're handling different kinds of animals. If I have a turtle or tortoise, talking about how to help them cross the road, because the main thing people see up here and the main thing they talk to me about are the turtles they find, mainly painted turtles, sometimes snapping turtles. So how to help them cross the road the right way, not taking them home because in New York State, that's illegal. So again, talking about how to responsibly obtain your pet reptiles, how to go about doing that. Like we had mentioned the Calabar fur and pythons earlier, so I use her as an example of wild caught animals and how not to do that. For the topic I use with like my pancake tortoise, she was captive born, captive bred, but it's another good example of a critically endangered species and why you don't want to take them from the wild. So kind of working all the topics in together the best I can just to try to hit a little bit of everything.
Yeah, that's well, reading through some of these, I understood where Drew was coming from. Not Drew, Scott was coming from, talking about not teaching care. That should definitely not be the goal, I think, of the educational talk. But those questions do come up because someone inevitably is going to say, I have this at home, or I want to get one of these.
Right.
And if you are a good source of information, you should definitely give them that information, because if not, they're going to go Google search stuff, and we all know how that can go. Or they're going to go to the big box pet store and they're going to tell them that, you know, that tortoise can go in a 10-gallon tank with this turtle kit that it's going to be bad.
Right. Yeah. Usually if I have someone that starts really asking for like in-depth care information, that's when I'm like, hey, like, come see me afterwards. I give them my card and I'm like, hey, here's my Facebook, here's my Instagram, here's my email. Feel free to reach out to me. Like, I'll send you links for stuff. We'll talk about it. I can help you out. Like, I don't mind at all. So mainly during programs and stuff, it's more like sometimes diet related questions, or like I said, with the ball pythons, that's usually the big one. So I like to talk about how they have different behaviors, how sometimes they'll go and climb and they'll explore and everything, and how we want to try to give them those opportunities to explore those natural behaviors. So again, it kind of goes back to just the natural behavior and the adaptations aspect, to try to kind of talk about what they might do in the wild as opposed to sitting.
I like talking about, so I don't do a lot now since we moved here. Where we were, I did quite a few of them, but I'd always bring, a tortoise is always fun to bring, because then you can talk about where they live and how they live. And you can always talk about, no, they can't come out of their shell, because everybody's seen cartoons, and how they survive and how they dig under the ground, because I usually use sulcatas. And then I also I have a Louisiana pine snake, which is always fun because it's an endangered species. So you can talk about how it survives and the fun thing about them is how they reproduce, because they have these giant eggs, but they only lay like 3 at a time. And so I like talking about some of the weird facts. I find the hardest thing for people in general, and especially reptile people, because let's face it, we're a weird ass group of people. Not all of us are meant to talk to the public about reptiles. You can love reptiles all you want. You can love them more than the next person, but maybe you're not the one that should share the information about that reptile to the general public. And Megan said in here, talked about keeping it, how'd she word it? Hold on, I gotta find it. Age appropriate, right?
Yeah.
Not a lot of people can go from talking to adults to talking to first graders.
Correct.
Yes. That's a big thing I've seen with educators, especially like at the nature center. We all kind of had our specialized age group. I was very, very good with like the toddlers, but also the junior high age, but having to do all sort of different like field trips for different grades. And I also coach figure skating. So between my private lesson students, but also my group lesson students, I've had to work with a lot of different age groups over the years, which I feel like definitely helped me get like a good background in education and how to work with different groups of people. But we definitely see that with educators all the time, where like some of them are very good at certain age groups. Like we had a couple at the nature center who were very good with the older kids. They really liked adults. They did not like toddlers. Where I was great with toddlers. I love working with toddlers.
I did a program once. In fact, our daughter was actually one of the reasons we brought the class back at the zoo. It was the zoo babies. And it was for like 2 and 3-year-olds. And the parent had to come and sit in the class. It was like a 1 hour, hour and a half class that they could sign up for on a Saturday. I remember that now. That was rough. It was rough keeping those age groups.
They have a 5-minute attention span.
Yes.
Holy moly. I remember like after the first one, I was like, this is exhausting.
I teach high school students on a regular basis, because those are the kids I can yell at, and I can deal with yelling at high school kids and telling them how dumb they are in person. I can't deal with elementary kids on it. Like you teach 3rd and 4th grade, and I can't do that. But I can come teach them about snakes for 15 minutes. Like I can do that. I can bring it down to 3rd grade, 4th grade for 15 minutes. As long as I don't have to be there to take care of those kids after that. I just got to get away from them.
He also won't do questions. He'll answer the questions, but when it's time to like call on questions, he'll look at me because I have this whole spiel that I do before. I'm like, okay, remember your question words, and we go over what they are. And I'm like, if what you're about to tell us tells a story, remember you got to hold it. Wait till we're done. We're only asking questions right now.
Yeah, but I'll answer any question.
But you do, yes, absolutely.
I just don't like being the one to pick on the kid.
Yeah, he won't. He's like, no, you pick. Who you
Also, because then you do that whole like the one in the blue, no, the other one in the blue, the one with the. It gets annoying. I leave that for you. Darren asked, do you work alone? If so, is it a lot hauling the animals around? Are there plans to expand and hire someone else eventually?
So I do work alone. Sometimes my little sister will help as like a volunteer. So if I'm doing a show, sometimes she'll walk around with the animal to have double duty. That way it's not like I'm talking and then I walk around with the animal. Then I start to lose the kids because I'm walking with the animal. I can be talking about that animal while she's walking around with it, letting the kids see it up close, touch it if it's an animal that's touchable. Or sometimes events she'll come. So it's really helpful to have her at events with me because it's a lot to set it up and tear it down. So I've got displays, I've got the tables, but she really likes the Dumerals boa. So usually she'll stay off to the side with the Dumerals boa, and then I'll be at the table managing the table and then like a smaller animal that people can touch and interact with. So it's nice to have that second person because then there's more options for people to be able to interact with the animals as opposed to just me. I would like to in the future, not necessarily at this time, I'm not planning on bringing on like a second employee, if you will, but I would like to be able to offer kind of like an internship program for the local high schoolers.
That'd be cool.
Because for kids like me, when I was in high school, there's nothing around here really to help you gain experience. So once I went to college and then kind of started to realize through internships that when you're applying for jobs in the zoo field or the animal field in general, they really care about your experience. So it'd be nice if I had something in high school that I could do, whether it was volunteer at the animal shelter, which our animal shelter, I tried for many years and never heard from anybody. So I don't think they really do much in the way of working with high schoolers or volunteers or anything like that. And the nature center tries their best, but at the time, the nature center was a smaller building. It's not what it is now. So when I was in high school, that wasn't really an option. They didn't have the animals that they have now. They had maybe a turtle or two. So there really wasn't anything for me when I was in high school. So I'd love to be able to provide that to kids, especially since I've been in the zoo field. So I kind of have an idea of what they're looking for, what kind of experience they'd want you to have, what kind of things they need to learn to kind of be successful once they get to the point where they want to try to get some more experience in the zoo field, whether it's a job, an internship, applying to very specific programs in college. So being able to offer that to kids, so I can bring on a couple for like a semester, if you will, and kind of teach them different educational qualities, public speaking, as well as animal care. So right now I'm working on renovating our basement to be kind of the animal room, little headquarters. So I have plenty of room down there. The long-term goal, which I'm hoping for the next year or two, is to have a very small scale local education facility where people can come. I can do camps, have classes, but that way it's a little more of a professional setting to have interns as opposed to like, hey, come on down to my basement.
Yeah, I've got candy. Wait, that's not
right.
I wonder if there's if it has to do with the animal shelter. So one of the animal shelters here they won't even consider you as
an insurance thing for a lot of them.
For if you're under a certain age, like the ones that I've talked to, it's been 16. A few of them are even 18.
The problem is we live in a world full of people that will sue. Whereas when we were kids, it wasn't that bad. So like as a kid, like I remember as a kid on Saturdays, you could go to the pound or Sundays and Saturdays and walk dogs. Like, yeah, just come out here and walk dogs. We just need people to walk them. Well,
and they did tell me that if your parents come with you, like if the parents come and the parents are volunteering, depending on the child and the child's behavior, it would be allowed. Because I'm like, my kid's almost 13.
I think I was in like 8th grade. If she wasn't
in the National Junior Honor Society, I wouldn't be looking for volunteer time for her.
I think I was in the 8th grade. My my local shelter like asked me one weekend, like, hey, will you come on TV with us? Like I remember one day I went on TV like their dog of the week, whatever. And I was like, I was the one that got to go on and show the dog of the week.
Cute.
So,
that's awesome.
But I don't know how much they do that. Everybody's afraid of like one person gets bit by a dog now and they'll get sued for millions of dollars, which is why she has to have an insurance policy for a program where they're never going to hold the dangerous animal.
Yeah.
Yep.
like quote unquote dangerous animal.
Yep.
It's-
Yeah, I've got a couple. I always tell people my animals go through like kind of different training phases. So they start out just being either display animals or program animals where I'm just holding them. So they're out for like 5 to 10 minutes and then they're back again. And then if they're comfortable with that and I think they're doing okay, then I work up to maybe touching where I let people touch them. I usually start with small groups. So the nature center day camps have kind of been my little training area for the newer animals because it's only like 7 kids and they're usually older ones. I always worked with the older day camp kids. So they're like 10 to 13. So I'd always bring, if I had newer animals that needed some training, I would bring it in with that group. So we do touching. If it was an animal that was trying to get ready for holding, I would do that with them as well. So I have very few that I actually have that I let the public hold. So in general, I've got a lot that are touching, a lot that aren't touching, and then my small select handful that I let people hold that I know are absolutely just going to be completely trustworthy. But I'm still like right there, ready for anything. But it's ones like my Dumeral's boa, who's a big gentle giant. So he's kind of like the big cool snake that everyone gets to hold. But I know he's a big baby.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go ahead.
It's funny that you say that about training the animals because I about a year ago now, the end of January last year was when we got him. I received a young or a baby
Here's baby.
bearded dragon for my classroom. My rescue had passed away. And he actually didn't even go to the classroom until August. So he stayed home from January to August until I felt like he was big enough to go to the classroom. Because I mean, I have 22, 23 kids in my classroom. And then when I have zoology club kids in the afternoon, I have 35 kids in there. So, I mean, it's a lot of people. So he came in August and when we went through all the animals, I introduced him and I was like, look, no one in here is going to be responsible for taking care of him because they take care of everything in the room. The kids do. They all have designated jobs. I don't do it. I did it over Christmas break, but I'm ready for them to be back because it's their job. But his tank is set right next to my small group table. So he's just used to the movement by his cage. And then in October, I was like, okay, I'm going to take him out while I'm teaching in the front of the room, but nobody's going to approach me while I have him. Like we're just getting him used to being around more noise. So I'd like have him on a harness while, I'd have him out for maybe 5 minutes and then he'd go back. And now we've gotten to where he can actually sit on our small group table with like 4 or 5 kids around. We haven't worked up to touching. He's cool with me handling him. But I'm hoping here in the next month or so that we can start with them getting to handle him.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's funny. We've even done with the zoology club kids, we made a big circle. And I had some mealworms and I would toss them and he would run and go get them and eat the mealworms. And he did that in a group of 30 people.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's funny that you said that though, because I'm like, I do that with mine in my classroom.
Yeah, a lot of people don't think about that. People think you get the animal and off it goes to programs. But
yeah, you've got to work on
my time.
Yeah, I have someone I know got a baby bearded dragon recently, and now that the heat and everything is like set up and the tank is good to go, I got a text message today. Okay, so this is the first day that we're seeing this behavior, but when we went to go pick him up to feed him, there was a lot of hissing, and I said, "Yeah, your temperatures are where they're supposed to be. He's set up the way he's supposed to be. He's trying to scare you away so that you leave him alone. But if you want to continue to handle him, you just got to power through." Like he will realize in about a week of doing this every day, oh, wait, this is how I get food. And then he won't do that to you anymore. Just keep going.
Yep.
I was like, you're not, because she was like, I don't want to stress him out. I was like, no, you're good. I'm like, his beard didn't even turn black. He's literally just trying to scare you away. Don't let him win.
Nope. Gotta start somewhere.
I was trying to figure out who said "Hey James" in the chat. It was Dakota.
Oh.
I couldn't figure out who.
Yeah, I didn't pull up Facebook. I apologize.
That's always Robert's job. He's not here.
I know.
I had something I was going to say, and then I got sidetracked. I blame you, Katie.
I'm sorry.
It's all your fault.
It always is.
It was good too. It was going to be amazing.
It'll come back to you.
Maybe.
So
let's talk about YouTube for a little bit.
Okay.
So how many? I looked at it earlier, but how many followers? How long have you been doing it, and how many followers are you at on YouTube? Because that's always a weird.
Oh boy.
The idea of so many people watching you put out videos. Like I'm always weirded out when people like tell us in public they won't listen to our podcast, and I don't know why. So, but you've got quite a following. What?
I'll have to share her YouTube with my zoology club kids. They're always looking for people on YouTube to watch.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've been doing it for a while. So I think I started my channel in 2018, maybe 2019, 2018. It was going into my senior year of college. So it was 2018 that I started my channel. And so I am at, I think as of yesterday or the day before, 10.7 thousand subscribers. So it's slow and steady growth, but it's been a lot of fun.
Still feel like a lot of people, like it's gotta feel like a lot of people that are just watching you post videos about you talk about your animals, right?
Yep.
It's cool. It's just I don't know why Darren listens to our podcast every week and is in the chat, and I appreciate Darren being there. It's just weird. Like, does his family not love him that they don't want him around for 2 hours on a Wednesday? It's just odd. So you've done it long enough at this point. How have you dealt with there's got to be negative comments that get left on videos?
Yep.
Are you at the point now where you just find it funny and you enjoy when they come in and you just laugh at them?
Yeah, so I actually was thinking about this earlier. I feel like I haven't really gotten any in a very long time. When I started my channel, there was always some, but I feel like it's been quite a bit since I've really gotten a good one. And I mean, it definitely sucks when you get them, but I feel like it never really affected me too much because my mom is she is very good at being like, if someone has something negative, she's like, I'm sorry you feel that way, move on. She's always taught us, you don't give those people your time of day. It's not worth it. It's a waste of your time. So it used to be, people, if it was something where we could have like a good conversation, I might respond to it. But in general, it was kind of like, oh, sorry you feel that way.
Just like these, like,
adios.
You've got stupid hair, and then they go on
right. That was the very first good one I got. I think it might have been an iguana care guide I did, because I started off my channel and my Instagram with my iguana that I had at the time. That was kind of how I got started. And so one of the first things I did was an iguana care guide, because I felt like there's a lot of iguana stuff missing from what was very popular on YouTube. All the popular reptile keepers and animal keepers on YouTube, nobody had green iguanas. Nobody was talking about green iguanas. And then I got my green iguana, who was a rescue case. He had severe metabolic bone disease to the point where we thought he wasn't going to make it. Through some rehabbing by the end of summer, because I got him the beginning of summer, by the end of summer, he was well enough that I was able to keep him for another 5 years before his injuries really took him out 2 years ago now, maybe. But he was kind of the reason for everything, the reason I got into education, because I enjoyed teaching people about the iguanas and iguana care and NBD and nutrition and lighting and all of that. So that's kind of how I got started with education, was because of him. So it was one of the first videos I did was an iguana care guide. And I remember the comment I got, I think this guy followed me and he had commented on stuff before, like positively, but he commented and he was upset that I like took the time to do my hair and makeup and clean my room so that it looked clean. I was like, well, I don't want to like have my piles of laundry all over the place and like my books scattered everywhere, because I was in college at the time. So I was in my apartment. So it's an apartment with a bunch of friends. So I literally just had my room. So half the time it was a mess, but I took the time to clean it up, make it look nice, do my hair and makeup so it didn't look like I just rolled out of bed. And apparently that was very upsetting.
God forbid.
I remember.
I know. I was like, I just want to look professional.
I know. I was just thinking, heaven forbid you try to look professional.
The funniest one we got was I got told by someone I needed to be nicer to my wife.
That was the best comment ever. We laughed. So Darren Watson said he's married, so podcast is his escape. And in my head, I immediately went, but no, I'm stuck here. This is not an escape. I could be doing something crafty right now.
But I remember they said that I forget how it was worded, but that I was mean to you, and you needed to respect me more. Like, fuck off, dude.
I was like, wow, if only they really knew.
Oh, I love that one.
Too funny.
Oh,
Yeah, it's just
that one
the
made
internet's
me
a great
laugh.
place because people feel like they can say whatever they want because they'll never see you in person.
Well, and
Right.
I love your way of thinking, and I was raised very similarly. And James has always been like, "Who cares what they have to say?" And that's not
Yep.
me at all. Anybody who really
like if
knows
Facebook
me,
if Facebook
I'm
wouldn't
like,
block
they
me,
don't
I'd say
like
fuck you a
me.
lot more often on Facebook.
like it stresses me out when people don't like me, and I've gotten much better at it over the years. I feel like I'm not.
You know what keeps you from stressed out? The response, "Hey, fuck you," and then you walk
No,
away.
I can't do it.
feels
It's
great.
not me.
Oh, you gotta do it. Just try it one more. If one person says something, just look at it and go, "Fuck you," and then walk away.
I'm gonna do that to you later, so don't get mad.
Yeah, I ignore you half the time, anyways. Remember, I don't respect you according to the guy.
Oh, that's right.
So.
Whatever episode that was.
That'd be very much my boyfriend's mindset.
Yeah, but
So it's definitely gotten easier too. Because if I ever get one, I end up reading it to him. He was like, meh. So it's much easier talking to him about it too. Because he's kind of like,
so
okay, so.
I don't ever read the comments.
Well,
ever.
what's great is they're saying something. I'm like, yeah, but you took your time to watch or listen to this. Like,
right.
Who's really the end of this joke? It's you.
You could hit the off.
You didn't have
button.
to listen or look.
So my new response has been thank you for the views or thank you for the engagement, and then I leave it at that. And usually they don't come back after that.
That's so
Yeah,
funny.
you can't take the view back. It's already there. Like,
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like,
in the
thanks
algorithm.
for the view. Thanks for engaging with my video. It just helps me out.
So Darren. So this is a joke. Darren asked, "Did the iguana have plastic plants?" That's because my chameleon cage back here, this very green chameleon cage, is all plastic plants. And people that have listened to the show for a while know that when I got the chameleon, apparently the chameleon community is full of assholes. And they were all telling me how my chameleon was
So
going to
bad.
die because I gave them plastic plants and that I don't like my animal. I'm like,
It was
Oh my
so
gosh.
hostile.
oh man, they were angry.
It was. I've
too
never seen
funny.
anything that hostile in the reptile community.
So
There's a couple of Facebook groups that are kind of scary.
See, and I'm not in any of that. That's what I bring to the podcast. I bring an outsider's viewpoint.
I'm in them, but I don't post very often because I see that too much. Where I'm like, if I post, I'm opening myself up for those kind of comments. So I'm just gonna
Yeah.
sit here
I mean,
and not say anything.
I'm not gonna lie. The people I got my chameleon from, who told me how to set my cage up because they breed them and they take great care of theirs and they're wonderful, told me that it was an issue with general people
Oh, they
online.
did.
They gave me the heads up. So
They
when I
were like,
posted a
when
picture
you
of my
post this picture,
my
this is
finished
going to
cage,
happen.
and I said nothing other than, "Hey, I finished my cage," I sat back and waited for the hate messages about having plastic plants, which he still has not choked and died on yet. So he's really letting me down. Damn thing hasn't eaten my plastic plants.
Gosh darn it.
Just get him to eat the fucking plants, and then we don't take care of them anymore.
No.
He's currently staring at me. Actually, it's kind of creepy.
He probably ate all his. Look, he's looking at his cricket bowl. That's what it is. He's looking to see if any more are going to climb out. I only had like a handful to give him. He ate so many the other day.
Chameleons. So I'm gonna make you pick. What is your favorite animal you have?
Currently at this moment,
Yes.
oh darn. Because I would have said my iguana because I loved caring for him, but I don't have him anymore. So at this moment, I really, really like my jeweled Lacerda. He
Those are
doesn't like
cool.
me, but I like him a lot. I love the very colorful animals, especially if they're blue. So my iguana was blue. And my jeweled Lacerda's got some blue. So I really like the blue animals. And he's just a lot of fun to interact with, even though he's pretty hands off, besides like 1 week last year where he all of a sudden asked to come out and climb on my hand. And that's probably the greatest moment of my life. I managed to catch it on video. So I just have that forever because it never happened again.
You have proof that it happened.
I have proof. And it was the best thing ever. So I really like him just because he's so funny to watch and interact with. And he's one of the ones where it's like, if you walk in the room, he'll come right over. So when I had temporarily, after I left the zoo, I moved back into my parents' house and then the pandemic hit. So I was kind of stuck there for a while because the housing market was just not good. But his enclosure was level with my bed. So I would just sit on my bed and he would just sit back and forth. He would watch me, we'd interact, but it was super cool. So he's just one of those ones where it's like, he will interact with you as long as you don't touch him. And it's just a lot of fun. And he's just super cool. But other than that, I really like my Dumerals boa too.
Yeah, I've got a whole bunch of animals that just don't like me in general. They're not fun to interact with. They don't want to be around me. I've had Uromastics for
Mhm.
like
God,
12
we've had
years.
Frankie for forever.
And
He wants nothing.
wants nothing to do with
Like
me.
I'm talking, James walks in the room and he runs and bolts
Oh my
behind
gosh.
the fixtures.
I mean, I can take him out. I can hold him, but he's gonna puff up, and he's not gonna bite. But he's just gonna puff up and like wiggle the whole time. I'm like, I get it, dude. You're not happy, but you've been here for 12 years. Calm down.
Which is funny because if
Right.
our daughter's up here playing video games, he'll come out, move around.
Yeah, but if you open the cage, you'll freak out.
Yeah, right. But I can be in the room with him and he's out moving around, and he won't even do that for you.
He'll move around when I'm up here.
Mm.
He just won't let me touch him or do it.
I
I gotta
saw-
feed him. He runs away.
I saw a video on her YouTube channel with an animal that's high on my list again,
What?
the pancake tortoise.
Oh yeah.
That was fun. We had a
She's
pancake
another one
tortoise.
that's very interactive. Like if I open the door, she's trying to climb out, and her enclosure is pretty high up. So she's just like, "Hey, door's open. You're here. Let's go." But she'll follow you around. She's super interactive. So she's been a lot of fun.
They're fun. I love.
We had
pancake
one,
tortoises.
and
We had one for
yeah,
a while, and
Someone gave him to us, and then we had him for a while, and then he just got sick and like died like quick.
it was very much like a over the course of 2 days situation.
Wow.
It was rough.
But pancakes are cool, and
Mhm.
I would like to do them. The problem is that the price of pancake tortoises is
Mhm.
just like shot up,
Mhm.
ridiculously expensive. Yeah, we
I
talked
love
about.
our tortoises that we have. I mean, I love the chameleon. Don't get me wrong.
I
That's-
miss my tortoises. So we moved to Texas 3 years ago, and our big tortoises are still in Louisiana. My in-laws live in our house in Louisiana, and they're taking care of our big sulcatas. That is the one thing I miss the most, not having those here, because those are fun.
Mhm.
Mhm. I would
Um,
love big tortoises. So it's in the future plans. I don't have space for them right now. I'd really love a leopard tortoise. That is like number one on my list. I want a leopard tortoise. I worked with one at the zoo that I was at, and he was just the absolute best.
I like cherry head redfoots.
Yeah, we have a couple
They
of
really
those.
We have a couple of those.
Yeah, tortoises have a lot of personality. That's
They
why.
do.
Mhm.
But you have a box turtle. Your box turtle.
I do have a box turtle in my classroom that was gifted to me. And
They're
her
pretty
tank
fun.
is drying out, by the way.
That's good. 'Cause
So I don't know if maybe it was just because the heat wasn't turned on in
Yeah,
the
it was
building
the
over
air
the break
wasn't-
because nobody was there
we soaked it and then we left for the
for the break.
and they turned the heat off.
Yeah, but it looked perfect today. But she was out and about looking around today,
Yeah, she grows pumpkins
trying to
every
figure
year.
out where the kids are.
She's a pumpkin farmer.
Yeah, my box turtle, her name is Alice, and my guinea pig Penelope are like the two of like the biggest diva class pets I've ever had because they are so obsessed with the attention that they get.
Well, the box turtle's funny because every year
That's
Halloween
funny.
gets pumpkin, and then like a month later, pumpkin plants start growing.
She ate the rest of them over the break.
She ate all the plants.
So all the pumpkin plants
yeah,
are
she'll let them grow up pretty tall, and then she goes and eats them all.
the kid.
That's
I'm like,
awesome.
let's pull them out and we'll grow them. And all the kids are like, no, leave them in. We want to see what happens. I'm like, I can tell you what's going to happen. They're going to be
They're
gone
gonna
when you come
disappear.
back from break. Yeah.
They're gonna be
Dancy's-
gone.
Dan says he's a fan of the Herman's tortoises. I
Those
guess
are cool too.
The little
And the
tortoises.
Greek.
I just got one.
Herman's.
Yep.
I always confuse
Yep.
them and Russians. They look in Greeks. They all look so. They're all just small tan brownish tortoises, and they're cool.
Mhm.
But like some of the cooler ones, are the ones you can't get, like the spider tortoises. Those things are freaking cool.
Radiated.
Yeah.
You can get radiators. They're expensive.
Oh, can you?
I mean, they're special. I mean, you can get them, but you can't get spiders,
Mm-mm.
and they're like that big.
Mhm.
Is it this? Am I thinking of this? Like, is there a star tortoise?
You can
I
get-
like the star
Yeah.
tortoises.
Okay, that is that is something I'm thinking of.
that is a tortoise. You are right.
Well, no, but I didn't know. Like in my mind, I could see it, but I'm like, what is that one called again? And I couldn't remember if it was the spider. I think it's the star though.
Yeah, and the spiders are the small ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no.
I forget what zoo we went to that had them, but it's the itty bitty ones, and they don't get that big. But they're really rare, and you can't have them.
That's cool.
That's why I want them.
Terrapins. I just want a terrapin.
I do want to. See, we can't have those down
We
here.
can't have
either.
those here.
Y'all can't have them up there
No?
either, though.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I can't either.
Yeah, we can't have any of them. I'm like, we can't even.
That
get,
is probably
like
the
one.
only exception that I would make for an aquatic species. Would be a diamondback terrapin.
Alligator snapper turtle. If you had the
No.
right setup.
I don't
No.
even think that I would be like, and don't get me wrong, alligator snapping turtles, are hands down one of my favorite turtles. I will sit and watch them at zoos for hours.
As they just sit there.
I will. There's something about them. It's like a dinosaur.
cool.
It's just so cool. But no, terrapins. I would
I like diamondback
I
terrapins.
do love diamondback terrapins.
See, I like all the ones that look very prehistoric. 'Cause I'm not big
Mhm.
into aquatics, so it's like
Mhm.
the snapping turtles would be my exception. So the common snapping turtle at the nature center, he was my baby. I loved him, and everyone else had their favorites, but they all like the and spotted turtles are cool too. But the spotted turtles, the wood turtles, I was all about the big prehistoric looking
Yeah.
snapping turtle. So now I've
Maybe
got the
that's why I
alligator
like
snapping
them,
turtle.
because they don't get a lot of love.
Right?
Maybe that's
Yeah.
why.
They're very
What?
misunderstood.
They are. They're the underdog.
Yep,
Like the
so I love talking
Frankenstein
about
of the
them.
turtle world.
I love alligators. I don't like common snappers. The common snappers I'll do it from. I like alligator snappers. I guess I saw so many common snappers. Like when we worked at the zoo in Louisiana, people would always bring, "We have an alligator snapping turtle." I'm like, "Yeah, no, you don't." And then hand you a common snapper. I'm like, "Thanks, y'all gonna take care of it?" Sure, we are. And then we just go put it in the bayou behind the zoo. I'm like, "All right, go on with the other alligator snapping turtle, all the other common snapping turtles."
Yep, yeah, those and like matamatas. I really like the matamatas.
Matamatas are cool.
They're so cool. And then fly rivers would be the other one that I really like.
What's the one you liked? The Houston Zoo had, but it's not on exhibit
Oh, the
anymore.
goofy ass little. Oh, what was
It's
that?
a leaf tail, maybe?
No leaf. It was like brown breasted leaf turtle or something
Oh, the ones with like the big eyes.
with a goofy ass
Mhm.
face. Yes.
Yeah,
That
they
was
are
the first
so
time I'd ever
funny.
seen one. I was like, this is cool
It is
looking.
the goofiest face.
Mhm.
But
And
That
it
would
looked
be
like it had a
another
little,
turtle exception.
it had like
Yeah.
a little smile and these like almost googly eye looking thing. Like,
Yep.
yeah,
yeah, it looks like something's wrong with it.
it does. It
But that's
looks
how they
like
all
a
look.
cartoon. Yeah.
I think
Yeah, they're pretty funny looking.
Crocodile Encounters down the road has some.
He did say he had some. Yeah.
So we'll have to see his Komodo dragons and check out his turtles.
Yep. And hijack you a.
If someone would just steal me a Chinese alligator, that's all I'm asking. The man's got like 40 something of them there. He won't notice
my
one
God.
Chinese alligator missing.
I was
Another
waiting
thing I
on you
can't
to
have
bring
up
that up.
I told you I would get rid of every animal, every reptile I own for one Chinese alligator.
You've got to figure out. There's got to be some kind of way you can get one for the classroom.
I doubt it.
There's got to be some type of.
I mean, they
permit.
are super protected.
I know. That would be the one I would let you have too.
Freaking love it.
We had a Chinese alligator at our zoo that we would use for education programs. And when I ran the education department, he was the reptile keeper. So I always knew that if I needed to use an alligator and I could pull off around a time where he could come do the program with me, I could use the Chinese alligator. And I loved doing programs
awesome.
with him.
Yep, that's
Anyways.
another thing we can't have up here. No crocodilians.
That's crazy because if you cross state lines into Pennsylvania, you can own whatever the hell you want to.
I'm pretty sure you can in New Hampshire too. So that's only like, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours from me.
Yeah, your
I'm pretty
state's,
sure New
Crazy.
Hampshire doesn't have very many laws either.
yeah, your state's not fans of that or guns.
Mm-mm.
No.
I want to pull up our discussion group. I'll make sure I put it on the screen so Chris Eaton doesn't fuss at me when I talk about it. We've been gone for a while, so a lot of cool things got posted over on discussion group while we were gone. So let me pull it up real quick, and we can go through these. This first one's really cool. This is about giant salamanders. I love giant salamanders. These things are really neat. And previously thought there only be 3 species of giant salamander, 2 in Asia, and then ours, the hellbender, which is so freaking cool.
Mhm.
But they have found more in Japan. They found a 4th species in Japan of giant salamander.
Wow.
So as long as you can keep people in Asia from eating reptiles and amphibians, they have a chance.
Very true.
But for anybody that's never seen giants, like the giant salamander, I think people underestimate how big Japanese or Chinese giant salamanders are. They are huge. I mean, you're talking like 4 to 5 foot long salamander that can fit like a basketball in its mouth.
That's
so
terrifying.
cool.
But they're awesome. But then we also have hellbenders in the United States, which I think are one of the coolest animals
They're
on earth.
so underrated.
We have those.
They
up here
really
in New
are.
York.
Yeah,
People do not give them enough credit for being as cool as they are.
they are a cool looking animal, and I would not want to get bit by one. This picture floated around. I saw this. I got shared on here a couple times, I think. This person flipped over like a tarp or whatever and found these 3 carpet pythons in the wild, all wrapped around eggs in the same spot.
I remember you sharing that one.
So that was very interesting. I would imagine those 3 females are related. So if you take DNA samples, I would imagine they're related and probably from that general area. But to find 3 all on eggs at the same time in the same spot was really cool.
That's pretty cool.
There it is again. Where I shared it. There's a angry frilled Instagram
Did you
video.
watch that?
I did not. Did you?
Oh my gosh. So it's
Yeah, talking to the microphone.
sorry. So I want to say it's the video. Is that the one with the video?
The Instagram video. Yeah.
Yeah. So this guy is literally just walking, and this lizard's like, "I'm gonna eat your face," and just keeps.
You know why? Because it's Australia.
Yeah.
Even the small lizards
No.
there want to kill you.
I'm good.
Yep.
Oh, this one took me a little bit. See if I can find it. It looks like a tree, but there is. Oh, I think it's a. Hold on. I think it's a moth, if I remember correctly, but I can't remember where it's at right now. Anybody go over and check out our. I think if I pull up on here, it won't. Oh, well, okay. It'll get bigger. It's somewhere in there. I saw it once.
I got nothing.
No, is it a moth or a spider? I can't remember at this. Wait, there it is. Someone circled it here. I think it's a spider, maybe. But it blends in super well. It's crazy camouflage job. Go over and see if you can. What in the world just happened? Katie, what'd you do to my?
You have to hit the X button.
I'm not trying to X. I was trying
No. You have to X out of the picture.
What?
You never do this on your computer. That's the problem.
And not having a mouse is really confusing. I gotta buy a new mouse.
Oh, I was gonna say I don't know where yours.
I wanted to listen to this one. This was a good Snake Talk podcast, which is a good podcast. Had a person talking about exotic parasites in snakes, which would be really cool. Spreading across North America. Dr. Jenkins sits down with Jenna. I'm not gonna mess up her last name. Just go listen to that podcast. It's a good podcast. This is one that Nathan posted about these. It says they call these crabs invasive. So of Georgia, and reading it, it was kind of tricky on whether they naturally got there. They're from like Florida and farther south, but I think they naturally got there and now they're taking over, which I don't think technically fits the
That
definition
doesn't
of
fit
invasive.
invasive, is it? If they migrated up there on their
Kind of
own,
a natural thing.
Yeah.
But you know what? You can fix that. Send several people from Louisiana there, and they'll eat all of them.
Send some Maryland people down. What you talking about?
Just they'll eat
Right.
them. I think this one says you can't buy snakes for yourself for Christmas. It clearly says from Santa.
Yep.
So,
I like that one.
what in the world is this? I didn't watch this one.
I did not.
This is the most unique crocodile. I don't know. I didn't watch it. It's an Instagram video. I think if I click on it, it won't open it. Yeah, it opens in a different screen, and then people can't see it. So go watch that. It's over on the thing. Wait, is that?
That was ours.
That's the
zoo.
radiated. That's right. That's Houston Zoo had 3 radiated tortoises
The Pickles.
named Dill, Gherkin, and Jalapeno.
Because the
Oh my gosh.
dad is Mr. Pickles.
Yeah,
That's
So-
hilarious.
Yeah.
little radiated.
It was a
tortoises.
big deal. Like,
Oh, it is. Radiated
yeah.
tortoises are rare. Crocodiles of the world. I didn't look at this one, but this is all the different types of crocodiles, which is I think at like 27 or 28 now.
When we were on our honeymoon, it was 23.
It was 23. But they've split several of
So
the
in 14 and a half years, they've added species.
they've split several of the Nile crocodiles up into like 3 species.
And I know that fact because we went to
St. Augustine Alligator Farm.
on our honeymoon and we were able to, and when we left, he was like, and now you have seen all 23 species.
Oh, here you go. Here you go. This is one both of y'all will enjoy. Open it. Give it a second.
Guys, check this out. There's a snapping
The
turtle
snapping turtle.
climbing the fence
Oh, I
and
watched
tree,
this.
about to jump
Oh, I think I've seen that.
for this water source.
Just climbed
Oh, my grabber.
climbed a fence and a tree. That's a big old snapping turtle too.
Mm-hmm.
This is insane.
Mute that guy. But look at that thing.
That's
The-
awesome.
Dinosaur climbed a tree.
Oh my
He
God.
said, "Fuck your fence."
Yeah.
Just waiting to see him
And then I
pop
really
down.
just want to see. Let's say, does he get down in the video?
I don't know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Give it a second. They're slow.
I mean, once they get head, and
No.
Give it a minute.
oh,
Oh.
bam.
Oh.
This guy sucks at filming.
Yeah.
Why do people always suck so bad at filming stuff?
Yeah.
Like, how hard is it to keep the thing you're focused on the camera?
Because what they're doing is they have their phone on it, but they're not watching it through their phone. They're watching it in real life. And then their phone veers away from what it is that they're filming. I say this as someone who does that quite frequently. So I'm fully aware of how that happened.
What did I do? How did I? No. See, I hit the X that time. You lied.
Guys, check this out.
Hit the X.
I
check
did
this
hit that
out.
X.
Oh, I don't know. You broke it. It's your fault.
I blame Facebook. Now I gotta get back to where I was with turtles climbing.
We
fences.
missed that much stuff.
We've been gone for 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. There's a little mouse.
Why is there a
I'm
mouse?
so freaking
Why did you post a mouse?
because I'm terrified of mice, but look at how precious it is.
It's pretty cute.
It's actually, and the article or the rest of it that goes with it, the photographer was like, just trying to catch the big stuff, and along comes this little, and this mouse comes like right up to the lens of his camera and just hangs out for a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
Pictures.
Probably because he's freezing. He's hoping that guy will warm him up.
I know.
He's sitting on
It
snow.
looks a little chilly.
It was just so cute.
Photograph an alligator underwater in the wild with snorkeling. Fuck that.
Yeah, no, that's a hard
Not doing
pass
it.
for me.
Not doing it. I love alligators, but they're better in the water than me. Okay, so this company here, I think I started following them. They do a lot of reptile blown glass stuff, and it is like super realistic. This is a giant axolotl they're
I
doing.
can see that. I saw the axolotl and I saw the flame, and then was like trying to figure out what was
they've
going on.
done like people go follow them. I think it's was it Garmezi glass, but it's a super realistic reptile. They do a lot of reptile stuff. I got sucked into a wormhole of watching all the reptile videos, and it's amazing.
I have to watch more of those. I did see that video, and I love like blown glass ornaments. So I saw that, and I was like, that is so cool.
Yeah, that's crazy. The amount of just the skill to get it to look so real.
Yeah.
Being furry doesn't make your pet better than mine. Very true. It makes it taste better, apparently, because my pet likes to eat them. I love this. Wildlife should be left alone. And
Also
then,
me.
And then see the snake or lizard.
Yep.
Yep. I'll pass that one. Oh, this it said Pokemon in person. He got hit with confusion, and now he's just biting himself.
Yeah.
Because as much as we love snakes, some of them are just stupid.
They really, yeah.
Yep.
That mouse is like, I don't know what the hell's going on right now. Look at that.
Just tags himself. Poor thing.
Stupid snakes. I think this is AI. I don't think this is real. After looking at the picture, it looks very AI.
Yeah.
This pied moose. I mean, I guess it could be, but the picture looks very fake. And I don't trust a lot of stuff I see on now because of artificial intelligence stuff.
Yeah.
This is one. This caiman eating this emerald tree boa. Like, that's a crazy picture to get eating it. First off, it's a caiman eating a snake that stays 99% of its life in a tree.
It lucked out.
That thing came down to move to a different tree
Snake
and got
not so
screwed.
lucky.
Wait, does this turn on the sound?
Internet is a vast cosmic arena where all types of content can be found. So here we are. We have Ricky on the left
this
and
is
Tracy on the
Ozzy
right.
Man. Okay. I'm not going to leave that on because anybody who's never seen Ozzy Man reviews, go find Ozzy Man online. His voiceover of animal stuff is freaking hilarious. I was just two frogs eating and then getting mad at each other. This always pops up videos of the spider tail viper, which is
So weird.
one of the coolest animals on earth.
So weird. I thought it was fake the first time I ever saw it.
Yeah, anybody's ever seen it, go see video. Go just search videos of spider
Have
tail
you ever
viper.
seen these?
I have never even heard of those before.
Oh.
Okay, so I thought there was a spider in this exhibit with this snake. That's its actual
Yeah, its tail has like legs and a head, and it
That's
will move it like it's
crazy.
walking.
uses it to lure
There's a
and
video-
distract things.
There's a video of one in the wild doing that, and a bird comes in to eat it, and it strikes it in mid-flight
Yeah,
when it comes in to eat it.
it's.
Oh my
I
gosh.
didn't think it was real the first time I saw it. And
Spider
James
tail
was like,
vipers, they're
no,
cool.
check out all this.
I'm
This
just going
one,
down a rabbit hole.
That is our podcast page.
we
The
already
discussion group is good for that.
have more than 100 ball pythons at home. Stop. And it's just no, but these have, you don't need ball pythons at all. Just don't get them. Don't get ball pythons. I'm saving everybody the heartache. This one Travis posted, which was fitting for our hobby. It says, I used to like this hobby, but shoot, seems like everybody's got a rock collection. It's caveman.
Take a ball python.
Yeah, he said ball python. But that was from Travis. Jason Creekmore, who's also commenting, also said he had a lady that told him yesterday that she saw a Black Panther in front of Royal Virginia.
Oh, wow.
First thing I thought of was this podcast because we talk about it all the time because they're not a real thing. And he chuckled and walked away, and she looked as dumbfounded like he didn't believe her or something. Yeah, because they're not real. Crazy lady. No such thing as a Black Panther. Someone with a dumb haircut. We're gonna skip past that. That's my dad posted that one. So
Yeah.
what?
Did you look at it?
No.
Look at the haircut.
God, that's so stupid.
Yeah.
All right,
It happens.
look, I'm gonna hit this X. See, there's an X here. I'm gonna hit it. Oh, it worked that time. Son of a bitch. It did not work earlier.
I think you hit the wrong thing, friend.
Well, we're done sharing that.
So I get the weekly emails from Reptiles Magazine, and there's articles and things like that. I always get them on Wednesday. So when we film on Tuesday, I can never bring them up and talk about it because I always forget by the next week. But the one this week had some really cool information. It had Western banded gecko information.
Those are cool.
And
That's like our
snake.
own Western banded, like our own small version of leopard geckos.
Right. Yeah. This exactly. It looks like a leopard or fat-tailed gecko. The
Okay,
head's shaped a little different.
Yeah.
The head is kind of like got a pointier nose, like an anole, which I thought was kind of cool. There's also some really cool pine snake hair and natural history on different, which is one of the largest non-venomous snakes in the United States.
You got to talk into the microphone.
So sorry.
It's only been 100 and however many episodes.
There's an article. I haven't read this one yet, but it's about how some people were climbing a tree to save an eastern indigo snake. But the picture
Were they climbing it to save it, or
Were they climbing it
did they
to
want the eastern indigo snake?
yeah, I'm not really 100%
Asking
sure there.
questions.
Yeah.
There are some new lizard species that were discovered in southern China and northern Vietnam. And the Phoenix Herpetological Society Sanctuary has announced that 6 mugger crocs and 6 gharials are now part of their captive breeding program at the sanctuary.
That's cool.
Wow.
So I thought that was pretty cool. That seemed like a pretty big deal. Gharials are just so bizarre looking, but it's
But they're
so,
so cool.
it's very they're very prehistoric.
It's just like
Yeah.
It doesn't look real.
there's this massive crocodilian that eats fish.
Yeah.
Like you look at them, they look like they're scary and threatening, but I'm like, in reality, they eat fish. They're not taking down deer or people, just eating fish with their weird ass
Yep.
mouth.
Yeah. It's crazy.
But they get huge.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
You know who
That's so neat.
I need to talk that sulcata. Have you ever seen the sulcata place out in Arizona? You know the one I'm talking about? So have you ever seen that? I forget what it's called. But like you'll find videos online of the people go out there visit, and they've got just like crap tons of massive sulcatas.
I've never heard
I
of
don't
this.
think so.
I can't remember what it's called. I know somebody listening right now is like yelling at me at what
They're yelling
it is.
in the car. Yeah.
This is what it is.
Send us a message if you're that person that knows what it is.
I've
We
always
could
wanted-
Google it.
I've always
but
wanted to
that
talk to folks
requires
to take care of giant sulcatas because I take care of medium-sized big sulcatas, and God, they suck. I love them. God, they're just such a horrible pet.
they're divas.
Mhm.
So you've done education programs, you've talked to people, and don't give me the politically correct answer to this because
Okay.
everyone does. You have to agree there are such things as stupid questions, right?
Yes.
Okay. There's no such thing as a
She's
dumb
like,
question. I'm like, no.
my
there-
potential customers could be watching this. I don't want to answer this.
In general, no, but there
Right.
there could be. So
I get it's quite frequently.
Some questions you could ask, you're like, God, that's a dumb question. Like I tell teenagers all the time, they'll ask questions in class. Like for me, a lot of times though, they'll ask a question of something that I just answered. Like, yeah, it's a dumb
So
question.
there's a
that's what I was
so
thinking.
I was actually just about to tell you there's a difference between a dumb question and repetitive questioning, because that's another thing that I do with our programs is if I remind them, listen to the other questions, don't ask it if we've already answered it, because we're not going to answer it a second time.
But I also like when people ask if like reptiles if they have babies, and they're not asking live birth eggs. They're simply asking if they have babies. And I'm like, that's a dumb question. Just because
I don't know that I've ever had anyone ask.
I have. And I'm like, they obviously have to because I'm holding
You're holding
one.
another one. They're not clones.
And it wasn't the only one on Earth. It didn't just poof into existence. Like it's a dumb question, but just sometimes, like especially like they're paying you to be there, so you can't be a
Mhm.
jerk to them, and so you have to
Right.
like put a smile on your face and then answer the dumb question, and then inside you've got to be, God, that's such a dumb question. I
Yeah.
just wish I wrote
Trying
down
to
all
think
of
of
mine.
examples. The main thing that came to mind was like the repeat ones, but like they'll ask it slightly different, but for like the same answer.
Yeah.
And like we just talked about that, like it's back to back too. But also the ones that will like, it's usually just a kid being like a smart ass of some sort when they're asking questions about like handling or touching the animal, but it's like something totally stupid, like, well, why can't we touch it in the face? Why can't we poke it in the nose? Why can't we boop the snoot? And I'm like,
Oh,
there's no poop in the snoots. We don't do that here.
I always hate when I do educational stuff and I have like stuff in tanks, and then you'll look up and a kid just hanging on the glass. I'm like, stop. Like you're like, there's a parent standing next to them, not correcting them. Like, oh, great. Now I've got to be the parent here and teach them like, hey, you wouldn't want me to come up and just bang on your head. Don't bang on this glass tank.
Yep.
I used to be in the back. Like when I worked at the zoo in the back of the snake area, and you just hear some of the dumbest stuff coming through there of people walking through a snake house. And it was usually the adults. Like kids ask kid questions, but you'd hear adults tell a kid an answer that was so blatantly wrong. You're like, how are you in charge of another living thing and going around and saying stuff like that? They used to drive me nuts. And then the big one drove me nuts.
Sometimes.
Well, like, it's gotta be weird. Like, so you expect it from a kid, but when a parent asks you a question, you're like, oh, I really can't. I gotta like hide it on my face that I think you're a moron. And you just gotta smile and nod at them, and then make them feel like they're a genius.
It's a lot of things about like, oh well, I like rescued because I also do wildlife rehab, so sometimes we'll talk about like rehabbing of the turtles that I've taken care of that year or something, and they're like, oh, I rescued a snapper too. Now it lives in a fish tank at my house. I'm like,
no, you kidnapped a snapper turtle.
Yep. So I get that a lot, and that's usually the adults. The kids, I can usually, if they bring it up, I'm like, oh yeah, and like you're planning to like let it go, right? Or like, hey, you should probably call like a rehabber. So usually like I'll segue into why wildlife rehabbers are important and like what you should do if you find an animal that you think might be injured, because the kids don't know. So then they do know going forward, and I make sure they know that, you know, I'm licensed and the director at the nature center was licensed. So I was like, hey, like, so if you find a turtle that you think needs help, what are you going to do? They're like, well, we're going to call you. And I'm like, good. You took that away. Good. Now you can go home. You can tell your parents that. But yeah, it's a lot of times it's the adults, because I mean, New York State, I feel like they're not very upfront with, you know, you can't own native wildlife. It's illegal. If you work with animals, you know that, but the general public doesn't know that. And then they come in and they're like, oh yeah, we have this painted turtle. And I'm like, ugh.
The problem is you'll say that to someone until they go, yeah, well, we've always done it. That doesn't make it legal or right just because you've always done it. That's
right.
We'd have people come to the zoo when we worked there and bring us baby. We rescued this baby alligator. I was like, no, you didn't. You took this baby alligator out of the wild and you somehow didn't get eaten by mom. That's all that happened. Like you didn't. Like they'd bring us like newborn baby alligators. I'm like, well, why'd you grab it?
Yeah, you're lucky mom didn't grab you.
But
we get calls sometimes. If they don't just take it and bring it in, or just take it and then call. Sometimes I'll call them like, hey, there's this situation. Like, what should we do? And I'm like, leave it. And they're like, what do you mean leave it? I'm like, leave it.
Yeah. They hate the answer of when you just like, just let the animal die. Like it's not like that's an age. Like bird fell off the nest. Okay.
Zoe, I've got to go pick our daughter up from her music class, but it was fabulous getting to talk to you, and thank you so much for coming on the podcast, because you guys will be done by the time I get home.
By the time you home, we'll be done. Yeah. But yeah, that's always the one that like when they're like, it fell out of the nest, what do we do? Walk away. I was like, not all baby birds make it, and like the odds of you taking that baby bird and raising it and it being able to go back, it's just very small. Like leave it there.
Right, most rehabbers won't touch it. That's the hardest thing, especially with like the avian flu. The very few rehabbers that we do have up here that do birds, they stopped taking birds because of avian flu. So people would call the nature center. We're like, well, first of all, we don't do birds as it is. We only do herps because that is what we know. But also, circle of life.
Yeah. You get like baby squirrels. I'm like, I know it sucks. It's cute as a baby, but I'm like, there's like 70,000 more of them. It's gonna be all right. Like they weren't all meant to make it. Just put it back on the ground. A snake will come along.
That's another hard thing that we talk about sometimes. Yep, that's another hard topic sometimes. We're like, well, you could save the squirrel, but it's not like there aren't a million other squirrels. Are you going to use your resources to save that one squirrel, or save those resources for like a wood turtle or a Blandings turtle? Because we got a lot of Blandings turtles this year.
Well, like that squirrel.
Yeah, people don't always like that answer.
Well, the squirrel can be food for something else, which will save that something else, and that's how it's supposed to work. Like that's. But everybody wants to save They always want to save everything as long as it's cute and cuddly. Like the moment you're like, hey, look at this snake that needs. Nah, we can just let it die.
That was the last one we got during. I think it was on Thanksgiving. The director of the nature center was on duty, so she went in to check on everybody. Took her dog for a walk on the trails. and found a garter snake curled up on the trail. And it was really cold that day, and it looked like he had just recently eaten and he wasn't really moving. So she's like, well, I'll bring him back to the center, warm him up, and either he's going to make it and we overwinter him, or he's not going to make it. But at least we gave him a chance. So she brought him back, and he warmed up, he digested, he pooped, and so now he's just being overwintered, but he's in great shape. And so he's able to be released in the spring. And she had posted that on Facebook, on the Nature Center's Facebook page, to be like, hey, meet this new rehab animal. This is what you should do. This is the scenario, blah, blah, blah. So now he's with rehabbers and he'll be released in the spring. And someone got so mad because they were like, well, you just messed with nature out there. He could have been food for somebody, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, but if we find an animal that we can save, we're going to do our best to save it.
But if that's a bunny, that person's not saying that.
Right. They're like, hey, you need to save every bunny and every squirrel.
Yeah. Save all the bunnies.
Why can't we save the garter snake? I'm like, either he's going to make it or he's not. But either way, we don't get a whole lot of snakes in rehab. So it also gives us the chance to practice rehabbing one that isn't in critical condition. So it kind of gives you more experience so that when we get a more critical condition, we're more prepared. So we've got some rehabbers that are more newly licensed. So where my boss and I have done most of it, we've got some newer ones that need to get their feet wet. So that's a really good way to do it because the snake just needs to be provided for over winter. He doesn't need he doesn't need medication or anything. So it's a good way for the other rehabbers to gain experience. So we're like, well, either he's going to make it or he's not. He's either good for experience or he doesn't make it, and we tried.
Yeah. That's I tried to rehab so when I worked at the zoo, we'd always get baby possums and squirrels and everything all the time. And because I was the reptile guy, they were never like, hey, do you want to take it home and try to save it? Because I'm like, so finally I was like, why don't I ever get offered any of these? Like, well, we figured you wouldn't want to save them. I'm like, I'd still like to try. Let me. So they gave me a baby possum, and it was going great. It was awesome. It would eat bananas, and I loved it. And then it died. And they're like, oh yeah, that happens a lot. I was like, y'all could have given me a fucking heads up that these things die all the time.
Thanks for the warning.
Y'all didn't let me know that it would just even if you do everything right, it may just die. I was like, I kind of grew attached to this thing, and no one told me it was gonna die on me just randomly.
Yeah, I love opossums. That was one thing I really loved when I worked in the zoo field. So I was always, into reptiles. I wasn't really a mammal person. I also really like birds of prey. But what surprised me was the possums. I really liked the possum. So when I came back to the nature center as head of animal care, I kept telling my boss, we really need a possum. At our facility, because of the way we're funded, we weren't allowed to have any mammals or birds or anything. It was just strictly reptiles and fish. But I was like, we should get a possum. And she was like, they only live 2 years. I'm like, but we should get a possum. She's like, no, because what's going to happen is you're going to fall in love with it. You're going to get attached. It's going to die. You're going to be sad. And then you're going to beg me for another one. I was like, well, yeah, that's how keeping possums work.
Yeah, then you get another possum. Does
right, exactly. You're telling me there aren't non-releasable rehabs that we can't work in. I'm sure there's plenty.
We ended up getting a wild leucistic female in that had babies. That is a scary thing to have screaming at you. Is this giant, looks like a giant white lab rat just screaming at you when you come near it. But
yeah, oh my gosh, I can imagine. We had 2 years ago an albino porcupine that came in, which was super cool. She ended up having a leg amputated, so now she lives at a wildlife center a couple hours away because their animal care director is really good friends with the nature center director. So it was kind of our director went and picked it up, and then one of their people brought it down to Cornell where they could have surgery, and then it went back to live with them. So they've got the albino porcupine, but it was super cool. She's really small, really cute, but it's just weird to see an albino one.
Yeah. Especially when you're in the reptile world and morphs, look at all the morphs. And then you see wild ones. And I'm like, it's so weird to see it happen in the wild.
I'm like that porcupine, it's a morph. It's an albino morph. How cool is that?
We could breed this and make tons of, oh wait, that's not how this works for everything.
Yeah, that was the other issue. They were like, if she was fully healthy and didn't have to have her leg amputated because she got caught in a trap, they're like, now you have to deal with that issue of, well, if it's healthy, we should release it, but it's albino, so it's going to have a target on its back. So would it be better off just going and living at the wildlife center? But she ended up having to have her leg amputated, so she couldn't be released anyway. But there's kind of that toss-up where they're like, people now know she exists. They're going to be looking for her because there's a lot of issues of who is going to go pick her up.
Yeah.
Luckily, the farm that had her called us at the nature center so we could go get her. But there was some debate amongst local people and different rehabbers about who would go get her, who would do right by her. But I think the right choice was made, and her going to that wildlife center was the best thing for her.
Everybody wanted to have a solid white porcupine.
Right? It's like all the rehabbers were like, well, I want it. Well, I want it. Why does this person get to have it? I'm like, well, this one gets to have it because it can then go back to her and have a great life at the wild center where it can like be well cared for and
Can't imagine
have all the staff on duty.
I can't imagine North American porcupines are fun to try to hold. Like their quills suck.
Yeah, I've only ever worked with one, and he did not like me. It was the one in the education department, and he only liked a couple people. It was the ones that helped raise him from a baby, so he was very comfortable with them. I think I only took him on a program once, and the docent I had with me liked him and had worked with him quite a bit. So she was kind of in charge of him, and I was in charge of everything else. But he was a little grumpy that day, so it got to the point where he needed to be done for the day. And she was yelling at me. She's like, "Can you help me get him in the crate?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I'm like, I put my little bird away, and I'm like, "All right, how are we doing this?" We're just throwing like bananas and apples into the crate, hoping he climbs back in, which he did. But it was stressful working with him. So I was like, that is the last time I take him anywhere without another like full-time person that can manage him, because oh no.
It's not even like African porcupines where the quills just poke at you. Like if they get you with one, it's in you. Like they got little hooks on the end of them, and it just doesn't seem pleasant at all.
Nope. The first, when I did training with him, I got to snuggle with him, which was super cool. So he loves bananas. If you had a banana, he would climb on your lap and just sit with you. And that was awesome. But I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like, what happens if he decides he doesn't really like this banana, or he doesn't like me? Like,
I say the moment that he's like, I don't like this, then turns around and just stabs you, and then you're stuck with all these quills.
Right. But that didn't happen. So it was a good experience. It was a lot of fun. But after that, they're like, okay, now you can take him. Like this program that we do every year, this event, they want all native wildlife. So you have to bring the porcupine with you. And I was like, do I have to? And like, yeah, we're sending a good docent with you. She's very familiar with working with him. She can manage him. All right. And then he wasn't having it. He was having a grumpy day. So I was like, great. Of course he is.
Well, that's something I'm sure you doing what you do. You have to have a large variety of animals because animals do have bad days. Especially you have to have several snakes of the same kind of care level, or at least experience, because they're going to have to, if you're doing say 4 or 5 programs in a day, you know, they get tired. My worst was that I ever had was I had a big 7-foot red tail who was doing great all day, but it was like the 6th presentation. And it was, I would let kids come by and like 2 fingers down the back of her, and I had her head, and I felt something prick my elbow. I'm like, man, what was that? And I looked down and I'm bleeding. And I realized, oh, she just reached over and like bit and let go. And I was like, okay, she's done.
She was like, hey.
Yeah, there was no bite out of like anger. It was just like, hey, here's a warning bite of you need to put me up now. I was like, all right, well, we're gonna put her up before this ends horribly.
Yeah, those are some things. Those, going back to like the negative comments online, those are some of the other ones I get where they're like, hey, like you shouldn't have this many, don't promote this many. So I always try, if I'm talking about a relative number or showing my animals, I try to always mention like, hey, I also do this for a living. Like I have a business. I have to have a variety. I can't have just a couple animals. So I need to make sure that they can all have their days off, that I have backups. If someone's having a bad day, I bring a couple extra. That way, if I get to a program and someone's like not feeling it, I can be like, oh, that's okay, because I brought this other animal that I can use instead. So I always try to be like, hey, like I have this many animals because it's what I do. Like there is a purpose to this. It isn't me just wanting a million animals and like spending my days doing nothing but cleaning tanks because it's like the best thing in the world. It's a lot of work. I'm like, but there is a purpose to it. There is a reason besides showing them off online. I don't just have this many to show off online. Like it is a job. It is my business. There is a purpose to it.
Yeah, well, because we reference on here, a lot of people when they get into reptiles get into what we always refer to as the Noah's Ark syndrome, where they want to get something of everything. But that's a different case because normally it's Noah's Ark, and then they either get out of it or they focus on something, right? But yours is I got to have a lot of this because it's an actual job. Like you've got to have them. Whereas that's got to be tricky being on YouTube because there was a whole thing for us for a while with YouTubers where it was people getting new animals all the time because they had to make a video. And so you just saw them getting a new animal all the time to make a video, not because they're actually doing education programs as a career.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was very aware when I started getting into the reptiles. I had already been watching a couple different people, just from trying to do research on like different animals and what I might like. And originally, like most people, I started off thinking, hey, I might want like a leopard gecko or a bearded dragon. And those are things that most people have. So that's how I was able to find kind of all these channels, because everyone's done videos on these animals, because everybody has them. So that's kind of when I was noticing that people were like, oh, hey, new animal. Oh, hey, new animal. And then people started to talk about that. So I kind of had a mental note when I got into starting my channel. I was like, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to constantly be like, hey, new animal. Hey, new animal. So when I first started, there was like a couple months, a period of time where I did start to get animals a little more quicker, but that wasn't so much me wanting to show them off online. It was more of that sense of freedom, because I lived off campus. I didn't live with my parents. I was a graduating senior. So it's kind of like, hey, I can go to Reptile Expo and I can actually get things now. Where before I was like with my parents on my way like back home for the summer. So I could never get anything. So it was kind of like that sense of freedom where like I could go to Reptile Expo and be like, oh my gosh, like I can get whatever I want. So that lasted for like that half a semester. And then I had a couple that I say were rescues. They weren't rescues. It was,
You bought them.
I bought them. I
Yeah.
saw they were in bad condition. And I was like, you know what? I have the money to take them to the vet. So I'm going to get them and take them to the vet. Looking back now, I'm like, that was stupid.
See, at least you know that, because that drives me
Right.
nuts. You're like, I rescued this. I'm like, you didn't rescue anybody if you paid for it.
Right. So looking back now, I'm like, I learned, but I definitely was one of those people, because, you know, you get into the hobby, you don't know any better, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to save this animal. I'm going to buy it and I'm going to take it to the vet so it has a chance at life. And so I was out hundreds of dollars and ended up dying anyway. And that's kind of when it stopped. And I was like, oh, okay. Like I can't do this. We're not doing this. So from there, it kind of started to slow down a little bit. But that was also about the time once I graduated and I was looking for jobs. And I was like, I did my first program at the nature center with the couple of animals that I had. And I was like, I really like this. So it's kind of when I started to set my sights on wanting to have my own business. So from there, it was like it was a steady progression. So I knew that I'd have to have a variety. But I was also moving into my apartment where my landlords were kind of like, we're okay with what you have now. Not sure we want you to get more. Of course, I got a couple more, but it was only a couple. And it was mostly when I was moving out to come home. Because I knew that's when I was like, okay, I'm moving home. We're starting this business. So I ended up getting a couple before moving home. But from there, it was kind of steady. But I definitely kind of had that where I first got into it. And I was like, animal. But I think there's only like 5 animals. So it definitely could have been a lot worse. I think it was like 5. And then I was like, okay, we're done.
So I'm assuming because of the variety and because of what you do and because time-wise, I'm assuming you don't really breed anything.
No, that's never really been an interest of mine. A lot of my
so you can own reptiles and not breed them?
Right? I get
That's
that
weird.
question a lot too at programs. They're like, well, do you breed them? And I'm like, no. Nope. I'm like, I don't have the time, but also a majority of my animals are rehomes. Either they came from Craigslist nowadays because more people know me, especially locally, because I do a lot. So a lot of people know me either from the ring, the nature center, or whatever. So a lot of people know me now, and they know that I'm kind of like the weird reptile girl of the town. So they know to reach out to me. So I get people all the time that like message me on Facebook. They're like, hey, got your name from so-and-so. I have a bearded dragon. Do you want it? Usually I'm like, no, I don't want more bearded dragons. But a lot of that stuff happens, or like I'll get an animal from somebody and then I'll send them an update on it a couple months later. And they're like, hey, like we really like the setup. We like the care you're providing. Like, do you want this other animal we have? So that's how I got a lot of my geckos. I got my fat-tailed geckos, and then a couple months later, I was like, hey, like, forgot you wanted an update. Here's an update. Here's the new enclosure like I made for them. And she's like, that's awesome. Do you want a gargoyle gecko? Sure, I'll take your gargoyle gecko. So yeah, it was like a lot of my animals either come from like rehoming situations or maybe rescues or whatnot. So they're not animals I would want to breed anyway because I don't know their history. Some of them have different medical conditions. So I don't really have good animals for breeding, but also I like to have like one of each species. I don't really want more than one because it takes up space and then I can't have more of a variety. So there's very few animals I have multiple of. It's pretty much my fat-tailed geckos and my ball pythons that I have multiple of because those are the ones that I tend to use more when I'm letting the public interact with animals or letting kids handle. So those are the ones that I have more of just because if one is shedding or not feeling it that day, I have others that I can fall back on. But those are pretty much the only animals I have multiples of. Everything else I have like one of each.
So do you go to reptile shows or anything up there on a regular basis?
I do. I did more in college because most of the shows are down that way where I went to school. We don't really have a whole bunch up here, although more are starting to pop up in the last year or two, to the point where some of the bigger ones that I would normally go to aren't happening anymore because there's so many little ones popping up. But this past year is actually the first year that I vended because on top of my education stuff, I have an Etsy. So I kind of my artsy side of things, because that was the other thing I did in school was graphic design. So it's kind of my artsy outlet, but a way to also use that major since I went into debt to get that major. So I got to use it somehow. So I, for the first time, finally, after all these years, started vending in person now that I've got like all the business licenses and whatnot, which was a lot of fun. So I did a lot of expos this fall vending. So I'm excited for spring to keep going, but definitely gave me an excuse to go to those expos. Surprisingly, I didn't spend very much money because when you're making money, it's like, wow, I want to see how much I can make. I don't want to go spend it.
Yeah.
So I'd like run up and like buy bugs, like feeders or whatever. And then like, okay, now I'm sitting at my table. I'm not moving.
And y'all have one day shows up there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think we have any that are multiple day. I think all of them are 2 days, like 10 to 4, maybe 9 to 4, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, all of ours down here are 2 day. I couldn't imagine a 1 day show.
Yeah, it was crazy when I went to Tinley a couple of years ago to meet up with some friends. I was like, wow, like we did the 1 day, and I was like, oh, wait to go back another day, get to see like everything I missed, just like hang out some more. So that was a lot of fun, but it was also a lot bigger than ours. Ours are big enough that you can get through it in an hour or two. Some of them you can get through in 20 minutes.
Yeah, like the one little tiny room of a hotel or something, one little ballroom.
Yeah, pretty much. And the ballroom are the big ones. Some of the ones I did were like a little community center room where there was like maybe 5 or 6 of us in there.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And for me, it's at least a 3-hour drive to get to any of the expos. So sometimes I would go and I'd get there and there'd be like 5 of us in there. And I'm like, shoot. I just like had to pay for gas, pay for a hotel room, where everyone else was like, oh yeah, we live locally. Where are you from? I'm like 3 hours away. And they're like, why are you here?
It was not worth it.
Yeah. So, but now I've kind of got an idea of which ones are worth it, which ones maybe will be worth it in the future, but maybe I won't do in the spring.
Oh, all right. We are coming up on 2 hours. Let me go ahead. I got a couple things I got to do before we get out of here. I got a giveaway. For anybody listening, we have our December giveaway sponsored by our friends over at Colossal Constrictors. They're giving away a digital scale for all you weirdos that weigh your animals. And I'm talking to you ball python people, because none of the rest of us weigh anything. We just don't. We just go, yeah, it's an adult. That's one of the things people ask me all the time, like Sambos. How big does it have to be to breed? I don't know. Breeding size. When it looks like it's breeding size, I don't like. I think when I got into it was like 300 grams, but I'm like, I can look at this and go, yeah, it's big enough now, or it's not big enough. Or I always love the like, how much does the baby weigh? I don't know. It's alive and eating. It weighs. What I don't get it. But for anybody out there who does do all that, you can win a digital scale. So I'm going to hit my random number generator of all the people that have commented over on our post for the December giveaways. And we've got number 11, which is going to be Jason Creek Moore, who's commented on several of our posts lately. If you're not listening now, I'll contact you. You won our 4th giveaway for December, which is the digital scale from Colossal Constrictors. And we'll get that out to you. And then we are doing a giveaway this month for a blanket. I just got to figure out what we're going to make you do to earn it, but we'll post that on Google, on our Facebook page. And then, I forgot to mention VivTech earlier. Anybody needs LED UVB bulbs, check out VivTech and use code Gumbo22 to save 15%. If you're not using UVB bulbs on especially your lizards and your tortoises, you need to. And you can use the LED bulbs. They are good for up to 4 years. Really, they're good for more than 4 years. Those things are amazing. I've used them on all my animals now. I love them. Get rid of those little curly Q bulb things that you have to replace in 6 months. It's a waste of money. Go buy you an LED bulb from VivTech. I think that's it. If people want to get a hold of you, Zoe, how can they get a hold of you?
So Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, they're all the same thing. It's ZA Reptiles. or at ZA_reptiles, but it's the same name on all platforms. So I try to make it easy.
Yeah, go over there on YouTube, on Instagram, and just follow. Just give her a follow on all those. And I got to go watch the one on the Calibars burrowing boas. I always say boas. I know you said pythons, and a lot of people do, but
and they're technically boas.
they're technically a boa, and I
Yep.
like boas. I like boas better than pythons, so I'll make sure I Calibars burrowing boas. But also just weird ass snake that doesn't really fit into any other category, so we're going to call them a boa until one day someone classifies it as something else.
Yep.
Thank you everyone for listening. Zoe, hang around for a second. We'll be back next week with somebody. I haven't figured it out yet, but I'll have somebody at some point next week. And then let's see, was it the 30th? The 30th is our 200th episode. If anybody listening, give me ideas who you want on. We're going to have several people on from previous episodes. We're going to try and get several people to call in here or there. If there's anybody from the last, at that point, 199 episodes that you want to see back on, shoot us a message. Let us know which one of our guests over the 199 episodes you want to see. You can go check out our website at thereptilegumbopodcast.com, which has a breakdown of every episode and who was on every episode if you want to try to remember who it was. Thanks to our buddy Nathan, who has done our entire website because he's amazing. Other than that, we'll be back next week. Zoe, thank y'all. Thank you everybody for watching, and good night.